All right, we're live. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Hash Church, episode 76, live from Negril, Jamaica, and surrounded by beautiful bud. Who says they don't have beautiful bud in Jamaica? I have to say that they do. So let's just make sure that we've got ourselves on pause here, or mute the YouTube. There's the other one. Let's see what's going on here. There we go. Turn that down. All right, I'm going to send the links out real quick. I know it's a bit early, about an hour earlier than I normally do this, but, well, I know that Sam is up, and so may some other people be as well. We'll see what happens. We'll see how fast Etienne can get into church today when it's an hour before he's used to being here. Thank you guys all for showing up. I got a bit of a room full here. I got my buddy John, who I just met recently, does documentaries at Ming_media. Check him out. He's filmed a little bit of Bubbleman's World while we were here. We got Archie in the house from Archie Genetics. Respect. For those of you that don't know Archie, Archie just grows some absolutely incredible herbs. Really, really nice herbs here in Jamaica. And in fact, his herb last year at the Cannabis Cup Roots Rastafari Festival was entered under a different company name. Wasn't really their plan. He told me the story of how it happened, that he had purchased some of Archie's herb, and that they wanted it to be entered so badly at High Times because it was so nice that he ended up entering it under his own company name, which was Ital Seeds. However, it was Archie Genetics who actually grew the herb and really won that cup. So we give a shout out to Marcus for bringing it there and making it happen. But the real shout out goes to this gentleman right here for winning the People's Choice Awards with pretty much the nicest herb in this country that I have been able to find so far. So it is not outdoor, although he does grow outdoor and produces wonderful outdoor herb. A lot of this herb is indoor, correct? Yeah, so what are you growing with? You're growing with T5s for smaller plants and growing with metal halides and high pressure sodiums for the bigger ones? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he's got a whole variety of strains. I took a little bit of macro photographs of Archie's herb, so you guys will be able to check it out in the upcoming week when I start posting that stuff. And Hemp Guy, I sent you that link. Why don't you come on in, brother? I've never spent so much time in Hash Church alone. Usually there's many people to come in. Well, you know what? Why don't we start it off with a bong rip? That's what I'm saying right there. That's what I'm saying right there. Oh, yeah. Hemp Guy, go to your Skype and click on the link. You can come in and talk in here. I need someone to bounce conversation off. We got 121 live viewers, which is pretty impressive considering we're starting an hour earlier than most people. Heavy Micro Grow says, hey, Archie. There's a little chat here with all the people in it. This week we have 17 strains. Hey, John.
What's up, brother?
How are you doing?
Well, you know what? I'm always very well. I've been like up all morning listening to like reggae, solid.
Wicked.
Some hash. I made this sift and it's driving me insane. It won't fucking melt. It's cleaner than clean. And
no.
It doesn't wanna bubble for me.
It just doesn't want to bubble up for you, eh?
It's not my strain. I didn't grow it or anything. Someone gave it to me and said, here, we'll see what you can do with it. So I cleaned the shit out of it, and it's one of those strains that just doesn't melt. You've came across that.
I have come across it, absolutely.
And I think it was kind of cool doing it is even explaining it to people, is that a lot of people say, I can't find that strain that melts. And you know what that's like because, you know, not every strain melts. And I think we should even maybe talk about that sometimes. Because some people get so frustrated, like, I can't get my shit to melt, dude. I'm like, well, it could be the strain. How's Jamaica, my brother?
Not bad. I'm just trying to get Sam invited in right now. How are you doing, Mark Scialdone?
Hey, guys. How are you? A little bit of echo going on, but can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, John has to mute his mic when I'm talking and vice versa.
Yeah. Are we an hour early or is it my imagination?
We are an hour early. I got to drive to Kingston today. got to have a car back on time, and it's already 11 o'clock here. So I just figured, you know what? Let's get this show on the road. I can't wait for another hour. Hash Church was already going to be a little bit shorter than usual, and so I just thought it would be a nice thing to get it going an hour early.
Awesome. How's Jamaica?
I mean, maybe Rick wants to come in. Jamaica's amazing, dude. Really good time. Went to the. I don't know why he keeps calling me, but I just want him to click the link, but he thinks he needs to call me. Just click the link. No calling. I am live on Hash Church. There we go. There he goes again. All right. Let's see how many times Mr. Skunk the Sandman can call me up while I'm on Hash Church. I better send him the email. I stepped out of his normal patterns, and I sent it to him via Skype, and that's why he's calling me on Skype right now. So I will quickly go into my email, and I will send off the link to Mr. Sam and Mr. Rob and Mr. Cuban. And I think Aaron still wants the links, even though we haven't had him come in for quite a while now. Aaron the Turtle, Cuban Grower.
Here's Sam.
There he is. Well, I'm going to send it to him anyway. Welcome, Sam.
Howdy, howdy.
Sorry about sending it to you the new way today.
Yeah, you know me, I'm pretty slow, so it took me a while to learn the new routine.
Dude, it was awesome.
And I was going to be first today, was my dream.
I was waiting for it. And then I just figured out Mark said he was all alone, so I had to jump in.
Absolutely. It's always good to have the support of the panel. I was a little bit nervous about Hash Church today. The internet was down and it wasn't working properly, and I didn't have things set up the way I normally have. I'm not going to lie, I had a little bit of an anxiety Hash Church attack, but I think we're good. We're here now. They're burning the good herbs here.
I have a question for you, Bubbleman.
Yes, shoot.
Have you ever woken up on a Sunday and not wanted to have Hash Church because you said, oh man, there's something else I just really want to do, like go back to sleep or whatever the fuck?
Well, you know, today I would have said that it was close today. I felt a little bit like if I didn't have to do it today, it would have been less stressful for me for sure. Having to drive to Kingston by myself, and I know how to get to Kingston, but there's going to be some experience for sure. It'll be an adventure. I don't fly out till tomorrow, so I go to Europe tomorrow and I'm going to be in Barcelona for the next week for Cannabis. But, man, I'm not missing a Hash Church. I'm telling you, dude. Like, I already drove through a blizzard for episode maybe 20 or 22. We drove to Brampton, Ontario from Pearson International Airport in a blizzard with two Rastas. And when we got there, that was the Hash Church that only lasted 17 minutes. But I still did a Hash Church that week.
And it was a good Hash Church.
You know what I'm saying? It was the 17-minuter.
But it was the excitement because I was talking to you as you were getting to the hotel. You were with some people. It was cool. Dedication, my friend. That's what you are. You want to get the information out there.
Dedication. Fucking neck brace coming into Hash Church. Talk about dedication.
Dude, I was like trying to Skype in for other things when I was in the hospital. I was like, okay, I can talk. They're like, no.
Hey, pretty good for an hour early. We got 200 people watching live. That's impressive.
I'm really trying to smoke this non-melty sift, and it's clean, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Well, you know, non-melty sift can vape off the nail nice as long as you just don't hit the last little bit and just let it, let it burn off the last little 20%.
Well, I've cleaned the shit out of it. It's just not melty.
Hey, where can they check you out, Archie? Is it Instagram? Yeah. So if you guys want to check out Archie on Instagram, it's Archie Genetics. You can check him out on there. Link up with him, and man, a few words, but let me tell you, man, he knows his speciality. That is for sure.
So, John, if it won't melt and bubble, don't you just have to add some terps?
Well, I don't have any terps.
Still don't have terps?
I can't believe it. You're terpless?
I have a couple drops, and this morning I was like trying to get a drop out, and I was like, really? I can't drive. I really can't go too far, right? So I'm kind of like, people got to come to me, and it's like, I'm like, bring me some stuff, and people are like, it's all good.
Well,
I
was extremely lucky because Tony sent me little bottles of all 18, and
nice.
I don't know how, why, or what, but one of the bottles, the lemon kush one, was completely full.
Well, that's a good thing, because he knows how much you like lemon kush. But I don't know why. What? That was the bonus jar.
I guess so, because the other ones, like you say, man, work at them seriously, and they're gone pretty quick. But
They're gone.
But I mean, I can get them to last about a week at the most for the 10 drops.
Wow, I think I went through the first little drops I got in a couple days. I was actually thinking maybe my screens are dirty and I have to clean them. And you put that little post as we were talking in chat about that Boris cleaner. What was that again? For cleaning screens?
Cleanliness is next to stoneliness.
Cleanliness is next to stoneliness. 100%.
Cleanliness is close to stoneliness. What's everybody's cultivar today? I think you guys are puffing on OG Kush or what? Oh, he's smoking OG. He's smoking Legend.
I'm smoking OG Shark Rosin. Not at
OG
night.
Shark Rosin?
Yeah, I got some OG Shark Bud from the Canawai Clinic guys, and it squishes so nice. I squished the whole half ounce. Like, shh.
Nice.
It's funny, but a half ounce only lasts a day when you squish it. Actually,
Oh,
half
yeah,
ounce
yeah.
lasts a day anyways, right?
No doubt. Well, yesterday was the Stepping High Festival. It was pretty darn cool. We showed up, well, halfway through the day. Went and saw a lot of the vendors, a lot of people selling bud, a lot of people had hash, smoothies, hemp this, hemp that, chalices. Really a pretty cool little event, I have to say. The Stepping High has really blown up from even just last year when Tony and I were got to be a part of judging. Now this year I was a judge as well. There was only 7 varieties. They're right here. I haven't opened or touched any of them. And it was amazing to see how many people showed up to vend and to have booths. And even Oaksterdam University had a huge booth there and was representing. So it was neat that this cannabis thing is so strong right now that you could throw a party around 7 entries, and that is literally a 2-day festival with 20 bands and 40+ vendors. I was pretty impressed, Rastas walking around with steam chalices that were 6 feet long, giant bamboo steam chalice. I hit it, and dude, I'm telling you, Sam, it was reminiscent of hitting that bloody hubbly bubbly, and I'm sure if they put a bigger chamber on the bottom of it, it is so similar. Like, everything is very similar, aside from the fact that I was steaming. I was using the clay bowl with all the coconut husk burning on top, and underneath I had a beautiful bed of weed. I got 2 vapor rips that I haven't gotten a vapor rip off herb that good in a long time. It almost felt like a bubble rip.
It'd be interesting to try that with the mixture of dry sift and herb.
Well, Sam, as I was hitting it, I was on my way out, and I had already tried to leave for like an hour and a half, and my buddy Caleb from the ITEL Steam Vapor Chalice Company said, "Oh, I got one for you, Bubbleman." And so, of course, I hit it, and as I was hitting it the first few times, it was such a fresh bowl, I got nothing. And at that moment, I thought, I should really just throw the last little rock I have of this super tangy solventless butter. But I didn't. I have done it in the past, and I find that rather than put the hash in with the herb, I'll put a bed of herb in, put the clay coochie on top with the burning coals, and I'll drop the full melt right onto the burning coals. And it's quite nice.
I'll do that. Got the herb.
You got the herb, Johnny?
Got the bong. I got some melty stuff.
Man, there's so many good people playing today in Negril, and I have to leave. All my friends, too, like this new guy I met, Loyal Flames, Callie P, who I've known for some years now. Hempress Sativa, who I haven't seen for at least a year and a half to 2 years, and I've known her for 4 or 5 years. And who else? Who else? There's Ake Becken from Midnight is playing tonight. He's the main headline, the singer from Midnight. Pretty bummed out that I'm missing it. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, Full-Time Junglist asked, what do the locals think of terps? Well, you have to explain what it is. I usually explain it as being the perfume or the essence of the smells of the plant. They're a little bit freaked out by it at first, you know, generally. You give them a little smell and their eyebrows go up. Yesterday I met a wonderful woman. I don't know if you guys come to Negril, but her name is Jackie. She has a place called Jackie's on the Reef, and she's been here since the 80s. I think she might have even been on Oprah Winfrey back in the 80s, early 90s. But she came by the booth, met me and Tony last November. We smoked her out and had some good conversations. And then she came around yesterday again, and I gave her an incredible dab. She took a champion dab. Coughed so hard I thought she was going to pass out right in front of me, and then just was like, she was like, I'm a chronic, she says to me. I was like, very cool. So if you're ever in Negril, Jamaica, and you want to check out an amazing massage, go see Jackie at Jackie's on the Riff. She's down towards the end of the West End. Definitely my favorite place to be. All the people are doing their thing down on the beach, but I prefer to be up on the cliffs. It seems to be a real sort of smoker's paradise up here. And slowly but surely I can say that with this ganja decriminalization, people standing on the side of the roads again with buds, I missed that. That was from the 90s when you'd come to Jamaica and they'd be standing on the side of the road with big spears in their hand. I haven't seen that in 20 bloody years, and now it's happening at these ganja festivals. It's happening throughout the country just as ganja gets more and more legal. 56 grams, everyone's allowed, 6 plants, pretty cool country. What do you think of our country, Johnny? You're muted. You got to unmute and mute yourself because we're getting a feedback on the micies.
Well, you know what? Well, I love it because I just cut clones and everything rooted, and I got seeds going, and they're never going to take that right away from me. So it's cool. It's going to be interesting how they're going to legislate this and how they're going to give us plant numbers and stuff, but we're seeing a change. Like, everybody's starting to grow. That's awesome. I think more people get to grow even 6 plants. Seems to be what the average seems to be going around.
What does the law say around being able to process those plants into hash or concentrates or extracts? Is there any provision around the method that can be used?
So right now there isn't. We have that one Supreme Court challenge, Owen Smith, that won the right for we can do extractions, but there's still a gray area around the concentrates, around those the BHO and stuff like that. I think the hashes and the rosins are fine, but it's interesting. There's not really too much. LPs can process oil and some derivatives, but they can't process like shatters and butters, right? So
I was asking Marcus for Jamaica. I mean, I asked this question, I think, when you were on a couple months ago. What's the regulation in Jamaica around hash and extracts and concentrates? Is there anything?
Are you asking about like our extract laws?
Yeah, like is there anything in the regulation down in Jamaica on the methods used to make concentrates and extracts?
We're still waiting for the regulations to be released. I heard it was released, or sorry, finished. They finished it towards the end or beginning of February, and maybe they're just tweaking it out, or that has to go back for this stamp and that stamp. It's all bureaucracy, and there's a lot of it here. So once that is released, it'll be a multiple-page document that explains the licensing, all of the different processing, etc. I don't believe Jamaica is going to do any limitations whatsoever. I think they'll allow hydrocarbons, CO2, water and ice, mechanical separation, heat, and any other ones that I forgot to mention.
Well, that's great. That's good news. I mean, it's great to have an open mind going into that, because certainly they all play a role in extraction and purifying trichomes and medicine that's in the trichomes. all those processes that you just mentioned are all valid processes that need to be commercialized and regulated and understood how it could be made.
Well, not only that, but I want to be able to carry my 56 grams of dry sift around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want enough to last me for, gee whiz, if I buy myself a month.
Yeah, true enough.
120, but...
Yeah. You and 10 of your friends, right, Sam?
No, I smoke a gram or two a day of dry sift.
Dude, I can tell you're sitting in the background coughing so hard. I was writing in chat. Sam's just by himself, like he's smoking at the smoking Olympics.
Quite literally, my wife has left me. She's off with one of her girl groups having fun without me.
Dude, you're puffing tough having fun with all of us.
Oh, okay. Thanks for reminding me.
You're hanging out with your cannabis mistress, Sam.
Well, I want to have 56 grams legal. Well, not legal because they can still take it away from you and give you a ticket. Correct? Isn't that correct, Mark? They can still take it away and give you a ticket?
I haven't seen anyone get there. I haven't seen it happen.
Okay, but that is the law.
Possibly.
Yeah, I know the ticket is 100 Jamaican dollars. That's 10 American dollars.
That's one under American dollars.
It's what?
It's under an American dollar. Sorry, I'm reading this guy Prophet Marcus is going off at me because I guess I said ours instead of theirs for Jamaica when I was talking about the extracts. I'm sorry I don't represent or really acknowledge the borders of invisible borders and countries that were made up. I think of myself as an earthling, and this whole country is for me to be able to go and travel around and spend time in any country that I want. And when I'm there, that country's on the planet that I live in, on our planet. I hope I can call it our planet, Prophet Marcus. Try not to be so divided, bro. It's lame.
I believe in cannabis osmosis. That means there are no limits.
Right. Exactly. I'm in the same boat. All right, time for a bong rip.
Tell them to listen to the lyrics of John Lennon's song Imagine.
Imagine, exactly. Try to listen to that. It's the truth. It's the truth. I definitely don't say it in a negative way by any means.
I just hit my bong at 1140 degrees.
What's that?
I just did a dab and I looked over and I was cleaning the bowl. It's at 1140 degrees. I can pretty much tell you I got really stoned from that rip.
Damn, are you okay, John?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm going to up mine to 1100 and see if I get more stoned.
I think it's all the reclaiming the bong, too. It just sucked it up. It was just like one huge... Like,
the thermodynamics tells me that you're just going to make more CBN, so enjoy that.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'll be like sleeping in the tent.
Exactly. So
all of a sudden you see me like this.
If that's what you want to do, CBD,
no, I did. That was the wrong way of doing things.
Yeah, CBD thermally converts into THC, only a mixture of both Delta 9 and Delta 8. So if you're looking to get CBD, again, it's really careful on what your temperature is that you're dabbing at.
So let's talk about hemp, the CBD, and its ratios when we're pulling hemp now off the fields and we're converting it. We're getting 20% THC in there and 9% THC. So whatever is growing on those fields, there is some THC left in there. Is there any conversion happening with the heat? Any acknowledgement on that? Because we're seeing it in some of these extractions right now where the hemp that we're getting has no THC in it, and once they've gone through a process of extracting it, we're getting THC left in the end product. I got some on me. It's nice and cherry flavor, but it's definitely got some THC in it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's thermodynamically downhill. When you push that molecule up the roller coaster, it lands in a different spot. So, I mean, the molecule is more stable when that pyran ring, the third ring is closed, and when that third ring is closed, you have THC. And I think that either under acidic or thermal conditions, that's just what's going to happen. You can't prevent it from happening. So I guess you could manage that in a way that you could look at a lowest possible dab temperature, and also in the processing of any concentrate, the lowest possible temperature, because you are going to start scrambling your level of cannabinoids if you have, you know.
Mark, how come we didn't see that with our GC when we tested CBD?
It was after the distillate. That's going to give the conversion.
No. We've got CBD as a pure analytical standard. We run it into the GC. It comes back as 100% CBD.
Right. So it depends what temperature. I mean, the injection port temperature is like what?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
So the injection port temperature on most GC methods are typically around 200 or 250.
I think it is.
I mean, yeah, you're going to see a little bit of that anyway. You can't keep that from happening, but I think it'll vaporize, and once it's vaporized, it's in the vapor state. You'll be able to detect it in the GC SAM. I'm talking about more on just thermal processing and heating this up beyond its a point where, again, you are going to start seeing conversion.
Well, if I want to heat my CBD up too high, I'll just call John and have him do it for me.
John,
Fucking full of jokes. Hey, Mark, where in Philly are you again?
I'm not in Philly. I live outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, outside. Okay, right.
This is made
Just because
from
the guy I met out here, John from his Ming Media, he's gonna end up getting in touch with you. He filmed a bunch of stuff out here. He does documentaries and stuff, and I told him about your class.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to give away a couple free scholarships to the class too. I think we're going to give away. Hey, man, what's up? Yeah, I'm in Chester County, actually, outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, right.
We're going to give away a couple free scholarships, Mark, to our class, and we'll have a giveaway later on in the show. Perhaps we were going to actually ask a question, so someone was actually going to have to answer a question to get a free ride to my class next week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool.
That's very cool. Well, I look forward to seeing. I mean, I'm sure you're going to be somewhat recording this. You're going to make.
Yeah. They're going to record it, and it'll be available on webinar, both live next week and for hopefully years to come. So yeah, it will be available. And unfortunately, it will conflict next week with church. But what I'll do is we'll actually go live just for a second and say hello to everybody. That we'll have a classroom full of folks and. Hopefully a bunch of people.
We're hoping on being at the Hemp and Hash Museum in Barcelona for next week, Hash Church.
Awesome.
Yeah, it should be good. So we got almost 400 people that have joined us now here, almost a full hour before we were supposed to go live. Got to thank you guys for coming out so early. I guess for some of them it's not early. Coney says he's coming right away. Sent the link out to Ramon. And
I was talking with Robbie yesterday, Ben's son from the Hash Museum, and he said that if we wanted to do that, it sounds good to him.
Well, that's wonderful, dude.
Nice.
I can't really imagine a better place to have Hash Church.
It's hard to imagine.
It's hard to imagine. We just got to make sure we have real good internet while we're there. Even if we have to buy an Ethernet cable and plug right into the modem, that'll.
Because right now, a good internet connection there is also hard to imagine.
Yes, we did pull it off. I'm not going to lie, we did pull it off, but we sat very close to the modem. Didn't move around too much. So I got to see some really nice fields of ganja while I was here without really trying very hard. I ended up with the Hashman. Of course, I posted that little video up, 20-minuter of chilling out with the Hashman and just listening to the cool things. Did you see the video, Dave, where he's got a giant neem tree planted in the middle of his field, and he cuts the neem leaves off and he puts them between all his pots like a pathway? And he says it really, really, really keeps the bugs off of his plants.
Cool.
I was blown away, dude. I was literally like, "Are you kidding me?" Like you, and the neem trees grow like bamboo here or whatever. Like the tree was only 5 years old or something, and to me, I would have guessed, 25 years or something.
You've seen the sadhus in India use them for toothbrushes, yes?
Oh yeah. Yep.
I just sprayed with neem oil on my plants.
Yeah. I guess the leaves are just so bitter to the bugs. They don't like having to walk across them to get to the plants. Or they don't like the smell.
It's definitely a preventive. They don't like being on the plants, but it doesn't kill them, that's for sure.
Right. Hey, we're almost at 420 viewers. Couple more people in. I'll take a dab to that. So you guys Stepping High Festival today. You gonna go back to Stepping High? Yeah? Check it out and go see the show? Yeah, me too, kind of. I mean, here they are. I don't know which one's going to win. It's hard to say. I keep seeing that one that looks like the lightest, and that's sort of like, it's got very, like, nice crystal structure, but I don't know, man. It doesn't look as nice as yours. How long have you been growing indoor now?
7 years.
7 years. And how did you get into that? Internet, friends, books?
Friends, both.
Both?
Yeah. I grew from 99 onwards.
Yeah.
So it's just like another level where we have to learn.
Right.
I always seen it. And then I started to taste it.
All right.
And then I realized that, yeah, I have to venture this because...
Tasting it locally?
Yeah, like friends used to carry from California to Jamaica.
Okay. So that's an interesting little tidbit, getting herb brought off island onto island was one of the way he started seeing it and tasting it. So obviously you thought, I mean, there's nothing California has on Jamaica. The sun.
Some outdoor.
True. Well, I was amazed at how good the indoor is here. And I don't understand quite why it would be so good here. Because it's so hot and it seems to be so much harder to control the humidity and the temperature. But it comes out beautiful. There's something about that extra heat.
Something that would be interesting is when you go around to these growers, especially the people who've been doing this for 20, 30 years, ask them who was the first one to bring wide leaf, or what they used to call China weed, because it was short and yellow.
Right. I will ask.
I'm really curious. I know that the guys who were backing up Ijaman brought some wide leaf seeds there. Must have been 15, 20 years ago.
Mm. Well, there's definitely seed companies down here like crazy just giving away seeds.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's now. What I'm really talking about is before everything was narrow leaf there, and then within a decade it changed.
For sure. It really did. It seemed to be from about 92 or 3 to like 2002.
That was the biggest decade of change.
Yeah, it just almost eradicated what we know as bushweed. You still see bushweed?
It's hybridized.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Archie says he still sees a lot of bushweed.
Yeah, but I don't see how it could be pure if it's grown on the island.
What's that?
I don't see how it could be pure narrow leaf drug variety if it's grown on the islands where people are allowing nails to go off.
Yeah, I hear you. I guess that's where the Phylos project comes in, to be able to test it.
Well, it could be useful. Yeah, because when you take a wide leaf and a narrow leaf and you make an F1, it'll come somewhere between the two. When you make F2 seeds from those F1 and sell them, then you're going to get 25% like the mother, 25% like the father, and 50% like the F1. And so they may look fairly narrow leaf, but whether their genes are truly narrow leaf or not, that's another question.
Yeah, true. It'll be a rarity for sure, but you never know. It might be that diamond in the rough that's found somewhere in the mountains that was far enough away and protected, and there's got to be some pretty nice narrow leaf cultivars still available on this island. There's just got to be. Jared's asking about the rosin. Rosin is great here. Tony and I kind of did it for the first time last year at the Cannabis Cup, the Roots Rastafari Cup. We were rosining hash because that's what I really like rosining at home, but it was coming out really kind of very dark and greenish, and when we hit the buds, it came out gold, like gold. Really nice rosin. So I think it's definitely, like, if you're coming to Jamaica, I tell people definitely bring yourself a set of bubble bags, but I would almost say now that you should bring some parchment and a hair straightener as well, a flat iron.
You do that wherever you go.
Yeah, they're just like, and you have all these guys like Tony who are bald traveling with hair straighteners alone.
Hair straighteners and dog diapers.
Yes, hair straighteners and dog diapers. There it is. That's today's meme for sure.
I think you put that into your, your toiletry bag. So if you are getting searched, it's like, oh, it's just natural. Yeah.
I don't know how Tony would explain it, but it would be fun to be a fly on the wall when he did.
Yeah, well, you could just say it's for his bitches.
Indeed. Yep. Oh, Johnny B's got his hair straightener.
What's going on down in Jamaica with testing, and any testing labs happening or springing up?
Well, Mark, I did meet a company yesterday. Now let me see if I can find these business cards, because I'm pretty sure I put them somewhere. They wouldn't tell me what they're doing exactly, but it was interesting. They said they were doing all sorts of testing for terpene analysis, and I asked if they were doing HPLC or GC or even proton NMR, and they said neither, none of the above.
Really?
They said they have a proprietary development that's their own that they're using, and they are called 4TM Jamaica.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can look them up online, if they'll come up, if they've got a website there. Research, identify, verify, and market your products.
Cool.
So their website is 4tmjamaica.com. And yeah, it seemed pretty interesting. I talked to the owners of the company, and they're coming out in the very near future to explain what it is they're doing. But
if they have a proprietary way for terpenes and cannabinoids, etc., I would be shocked and surprised. But anything's possible. I think it's more likely they're using like thin layer not thin layer, but thin layer chromatography or something like that.
Yeah,
which is not very efficient for terpenes.
A proprietary method using standard techniques and I mean, there's no new techniques that need to be invented.
I'd be surprised. Anything's possible.
Well, I mean, I don't.
You know what? I agree. And I only agree because there are things that we don't know, and we do develop and create new things. I got the same idea when I spoke with them, that it would be hard to see something be so new and so amazing. At the same time, I said, man, I got my fingers crossed for you guys. I hope you do have something new and amazing. That would be really exciting.
Yeah, well, Steep Hill claims that their new infrared detector, remember the one we saw a few years ago at the High Times Cup?
Yeah.
They claim that their newest model, because first they had it, then they have the version 1, and now they have the version 2. They claim it'll do terpenes. I haven't seen it.
Isn't that a reference machine, though?
Yeah, it's not.
It works by a database. It's a joke.
It's not a testing machine. It scans and gives them a picture of what they then compare to their database of stuff they actually tested and say it looks like whatever, X, Y, or Z. It's not really testing anything.
Right, and that's not the issue with that is that there's it's not like a tablet of aspirin where there's only a single active ingredient. In cannabis, there's several active ingredients and several terpenes, and all of these peaks that you're sort of drawing reference to in this case near IR spectrum, which is what the steep hill device and the Canalizer 420 and all these near IR devices that are packaged in little Pelican case containers where you take either a sample of hash or you take a sample of bud and put up there. You have to realize that whenever you're looking at the absorbance of any of those peaks down in what's called the fingerprint region of near IR, is that in most reasonable concentrations, yeah, they do have what's called a Beer's Law linear relationship where the stronger that peak is, the more of that component. And yeah, you can go back to a HPLC determination calibration curve and say, when that peak is that particular height, that corresponds to a particular cannabinoid or terpene concentration at this particular level. And the issue with that is that when you look at the linearity of these calibration curves, is they're not always linear at very high and very low concentrations, and that's only looking at a single substance at a time. When you put many substances together, a lot of these things have overlapping and interfering peaks that create non-linear effects at different concentrations with different strains, and those non-linear effects make the results from any device where you put some sample on to say that you can push a button and measure cannabinoid content is ballpark, or what I like, ballpark to me is plus or minus 2%. I'd like to even think that some of these results can be what I call exit that the ballpark is at, which is plus or minus 10%, meaning that there can be
Mark, I don't think
when you measure something. Hold on, Sam. When you measure something and it's
Mark, you're not measuring anything with this. This is my point entirely. You're using infrared to scan the sample. The scan is going back and it's going against a comparison of everything they've actually GCMS test. So all the actual results they're giving you are not coming from that infrared scan. It's coming from the backlog of all of the data they are comparing against.
Right.
So they look at the face of the bud and they say, this looks like, and then they give you the results from something else they tested that isn't what they scanned with the infrared.
I totally get it, Todd.
Okay.
That's the calibration curve that they're comparing it to, so I understand. And it's interesting because on Adam Dunn, we asked one of the chemists who's working with the company in Boulder that's looking to develop one of these, what results they were correlating it back to, and I think we kind of caught him with his caught him at an interesting time. He wasn't prepared to answer the question, and he answered it by saying that they went back and correlated it to HPLC results from the University of Mississippi, which I don't know if I would put a whole lot of confidence in any measurements. But the point is that you have to look at like how well these things can.
Can I pause you down though? If they did that,
variable material like cannabis.
Data entry, Mark. If they actually got the data from the University of Mississippi, that would just be them entering data and then comparing it against other people's tests.
Yeah, no, I get it, but that's how they're drawing the calibration curve, that they're able to tell you that that sample has 68% CBD or 25% THC or whatever. The point is that if you look at a single active ingredient like aspirin and you're only looking at one active ingredient, you could use those near IR scanners and they're totally valid for that. But for multiple active ingredients in a variable plant material, I don't think that those things are really providing accurate results.
There is no shortcut to science, and that's all they're doing. They're just trying to pretend.
When they demonstrated that machine to me in Amsterdam, they told me it was only 10% accuracy. I mean, they weren't trying to make super clear, and they told me it was useless for terpenes.
And I've seen the second one, and I don't believe that. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, well, I have my doubts too.
The only thing that I found a little bit sketchy about it was it did seem to change the results from the same bud if you told them a different name.
Correct.
Well, that's because the samples were weighted according to their name.
I mean, that might have been the first machine. I'm not sure I saw the second one, so I can't say. But I remember someone telling me, they said, oh, I just tested the same bud twice under a different name, and it came back different. I was like, oh, I guess because it's a reference.
And that's just not the way science works. You can't just put a name in and all of a sudden change the results. That's just bogus. But
that's what I'm saying. It's not science.
Right. The point is that I wanted to mention this to Sam before this escapes me. Sam, I've actually looked at some near IR data of very, very sappy extracts, and you can actually measure at higher concentration certain terpenes by near IR. But again, all these things have to be correlated back to some method like HPLC.
Also, too, Mark, imagine that, okay, we have some rosin or some extract of some sort, and we've gotten the terpenes and we've brushed them on the outside. How's it going to give you a total percentage of the terpenes?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's when you're sampling anything with some type of beam, electron beam, or a near IR beam, yeah, you're only sampling where the beam hits. How do you know what the
exactly?
Yeah, I mean, all that comes into play here. I mean, there's basically a whole myriad of things that need to be worked out to make it into a practical method. But the one thing I was just going to say is that some of the terpenes have very, very characteristic absorbances in the near IR where you can actually, at certain concentrations, make linear type Beer's law correlations to absorbance and concentration. That is known.
Well, I would like one if it was really, really reliable and reproducible, the results. Then I'd be a happy camper.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that could make that could skew the results from that measurement that I think it's a little ways away from being something practical that you can just walk up to and put a sample of bud or a sample of hash on some machine, press a button, and it tells you to a very high degree of precision and accuracy what the level of cannabinoids are in that sample.
Hey, welcome Todd and Etienne and Tony. Someone's saying it's ignorant to say spectrography is not science.
Spectrography? It's ignorant to say spectrography.
Yeah, I guess we're all ignorant after doing testing since 2007 and working with experts around the world, I guess. Yeah, I guess we've all wasted our science.
I can tell you that a properly running HPLC could measure cannabinoid content in less than 20 minutes. So if you have an HPLC that's running properly and you have a good technician there and you have a good...
That's calibrated.
That's calibrated against, you know, known analytical standards, you can determine cannabinoid content in less than a half hour. So, I mean, if there's a method that's, you know, easier than that, I mean, I don't understand it as a chemist, but you can.
And what's the accuracy of HPLC for terpenes compared to a GC?
Yeah, if you look at the DeBacker paper, which is what the AHP method is based on, the accuracy is really tremendous, especially cannabinoids at the levels that they're typically found in cannabis and concentrates.
What about for terpenes, I was saying?
Yeah, for terpenes are less accurate, Sam, and the only reason why is because, you know, they're there at much lower concentration, so it's almost kind of like, I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, you got to take the Mona Lisa out of the picture just so you can see her clothes, you know.
Right, and
it's
the most reliable results that we got was GCFID.
Yeah, again, the problem, we've discussed this, the problem with GC is that you're heating up the stuff, and heating up the stuff in the injection port leaves a thermal history of the terpenes, and so you're talking about terpenes after in the GC, which is not terpenes before the GC.
Right, and I explained my rationale. My rationale always was I wanted what the subject would get if they smoked a joint. That's why my GC is equivalent to the subject smoking a joint.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We have this discussion, what, every 3 or 4 episodes, Sam?
Well, I agree that HPLC is technically superior, but a GC, boy, was it easy to use. We could run for cannabinoids and terpenes at the same time.
Yeah, you're not looking at the cannabinoid acids, and you're not looking at the terpenes.
No, you're right, correct.
You're not looking at the terpenes before they've, have some thermal treatment. And again,
that's absolutely correct.
This is where I think, again, Sam, we'll hopefully be able to show this in years to come, that NMR can be used as a room temperature method, especially if you understand that everything other than the cannabinoids is sort of what we're looking at, and that's sort of the NMR fingerprint. And NMR is extremely sensitive, and it can't, the molecules can't hide. If they're in the essential oil or if they're in the extract or the hash, they'll show up in the NMR, and we'll be able to figure out what they all are. We just need to do it.
And Mark, do you know, is the perfume industry already using NMR over GCs or HPLCs?
They use it all, Sam. Why would they not use? I mean, in their arsenal, they have NMR, they have atomic spectroscopy, they have a GC, they have HPLC. I mean, when you're an analytical chemist, it's like you use all those tools. You have a facility that has all of that at your access. You wouldn't use one over the other. Now, again, HPLC and mass spec, when you couple mass spec to HPLC, it's an incredibly accurate way to quantify material that's in a plant extract. And we could, again, the AHP, the Backer method, from the J chromatography paper from 2009, shows a highly reliable, even to the level of small amounts of all the major 7 cannabinoids that are in the plant. So if you're talking about just doing terpene analysis, you kind of got to, again, look a little bit closer at what's beyond just the cannabinoids.
Well, I would love to be able to do terpenes without any change to them, even though, in fact, I'm more interested in what happens when you smoke them in a joint or a pipe or whatever.
Yeah, it would be interesting to establish a profile both before and after, like a room temperature profile of all, the favorite strains. This is what they look like in the oil, and then this is what we look like when we dab them or when we smoke them at combustion temperatures. And I guarantee you, without knowing that what they look like exactly, that they are going to be different.
Yeah, we'll have lots of hashin, yeah?
Yeah. Hashishin will be formed. That's the hypothesis. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think that hashishin molecule is the basis of some of the high molecular or low molecular weight resinous material that you see when you do pyrolyze cannabis extract, and you could almost smell like a bitter tasting material that I think is a hashishin degradation product that is formed upon thermal upon more heating with temperature in the presence of air. So I think it forms a resin.
I wish I had a sample of it.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually artificially make a sample, Sam, so I could actually identify it and characterize it myself. I'm working on that right now.
Myrcene is not expensive, so in
No. Yeah, I'm trying to derive it from cannabis myself. I'm trying to actually intentionally make that compound and characterize it so I could actually have it in a vial and see what it smells like and see what it tastes like. And my hypothesis is that it actually thermally degrades into a resinous or polymeric material that's probably not something that's too nice.
And I'm interested in what does it do to THC? Does it modify or potentiate THC?
Yeah, it may not do anything. I mean, I think that the authors in the paper said it goes to a furanic material, which Yeah, a lot of these dark resinous materials become bitter and not the kind of things you want to turn your terpenes into. I mean, it's basically what happens when you overheat terpenes in the presence of air. You can't keep it from happening. It just happens.
Well, if people are smoking it in hashish, it can't hurt you too much.
Yeah, but the thing is like when you smoke it and you're smoking it and you're heating it up faster than it can degrade, it's vaporized, as opposed to heating it up for a long time in a chemical process where you're allowing it to form and degrade. And they're just like sort of two different things kinetically.
Well, for science, I'd try it.
What's going on, Tony?
Oh, I'm trying to appease the little plumber.
Trying to what?
Appease her. This morning she heard the hash church started, and she started barking at everybody. She heard these voices coming around, started getting loud, and I said, "Listen, I fed you. You've gone to the bathroom. You're back at home. Like, there should be no excuses this morning. The door's open. You can go outside." And she's just like, bah, 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 bah. So I think what it is that she's used to being on the show. Look how happy she is, just right in my lap, watching you. You know? She just wants to be on Hash Church. I think that's what it is. We need to get her own computer and her own deal. And she wakes up earlier than I do. And I think she'd probably come on before I would. She likes hanging out with me because she knows that, like, this is when I have repetitive bong hits, hashish, and she just wants to be, like, right there on the exhale.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. For those that are out there in this world that thought I had a big dog, I mean, she's a little tiny bear. He's a little bear.
People were picturing you with like a 200-pound mastiff just shitting all over the walls of your hotel.
Yeah. Wasn't quite like that. Wasn't quite like that.
Oh, well, someone should apologize to you and your dog for making rude comments against you and your dog.
Somebody
I respect all
apologize?
I see a cat.
She's a very special dog. She just got sick.
It happens. It happens to the best of us. So you looking forward to Spain?
Dude, I am so looking forward to Spain. See, she's getting all mad. You want a bong rip? Bong rip.
So want to go to Spain, but I don't think I can. So.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to Spain. I saw some people posting in HQ already.
Is your dog coming to Spain?
No, my dog's not coming to Spain.
Oh, you see the look she gave
my cat.
Yeah, she did. She's getting mad. She's already starting to bark. You're not coming with me. You're not coming to Spain. Nope. No, the last hotel experience was enough.
Well, last year in Spain we did rosin at the Bubbleman booth, at the Medical Seeds booth. We literally showed most of those people rosin for the first time. I have great footage of Matt the Great Gardener and Aaron and Don and Remo and just a ton of people in the industry. Milo might have been there, all standing and watching rosin be made for the first time. So we'll have to do something different this year.
I got something special planned.
And we'll make some videos and we'll show the audience what it's going to be in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I got something very special planned. It'll be fun.
Well,
something for the first
very
time.
Nice of Ravi. What's that?
I said it'll be something for the first time as well.
Well, that's what I always like to do. It's always nice to do something for the first time. So Spain seems to be like one of those places that you can each year go there with something a little new and really release it to the most receptive crowd ever.
Yeah.
I've also been told by a lot of people that I'm going to be extremely happy with the quality of hash that's being sold in the clubs right now. I was pretty darn happy last year just from between guys like David from Ripper Seeds and Javier from Medical Seeds and a variety of friends from different shops that just kicked down little pieces. I was totally impressed, thoroughly impressed. In fact, it was not only great hash, but it was a Spanish version of great hash. You know, these outdoor strains grown red resin. Some were like very light and golden and amber. Basically like fire hash that just had that little, it looked just a little bit different from anything else that I'd seen because it was grown out in, you know, under the Catalonian sun.
I'm looking forward to seeing like the guys at HQ and hanging out and just like being able to enjoy some of that, you know. I watched some of the pictures also from their club. It looks like a lot of people are hanging out already.
Well, I'm telling you, I hope that they do some smoke-free nights there, but otherwise I'm going to be sticking to all of the shops. I think one is called La Calada, and they're doing a smoke-free week for Cannabis. You're not allowed to smoke tobacco, so that is where I'm going to be.
Oh, yeah. Is that something that HQ is, they all smoke cigarettes or smoke tobacco, huh?
Well, they've never asked their customers not to, and I would never expect them to, but I'll tell you, if they did, for a week or a day even, I would be there for that day or every day that they did it for. But I can't subject myself to tobacco smoke the way it goes on in some of those clubs. Even with a €50,000 exhaust system, it just ends up being too much on my lungs and my clothes and my being.
I get instant migraines.
I get instant migraines too, dude. It's brutal. It's just, you know, it's the Cali life too. If you're used to living in like the West Coast, like from Cali all the way up to Vancouver, it's pretty much like religious, like fervent belief of don't smoke around me. People are like, do not fucking smoke around me. And Spain is quite the opposite. It's not rude at all to just smoke a cigarette and blow it in someone's face. They still got that going on over there.
Yeah, I don't like that too much. I don't like that kind of action too much, but you know, I guess I won't be going to like too many places like that then.
Well, exactly. And you know what? For all I know, HQ will see us talking about this, and David will be like, "I'm going to make one day a tobacco smoke-free, meaning no tobacco in the joints, no tobacco cigarettes, just hash and weed. Make it a pure thing." But you got to, yeah. Then again, these are their shops, so I understand fully if they owe their. You know, they have to do what the members signed up for. They have a ton of members, and you know, the members go there to smoke tobacco. So,
well, and we're obsessed with the pure. You know, like that Northwest compared to them, everything we're trying to do is absolute purity. And then there's you know, they mix in with tobacco, and they look at you sometimes. I remember in Amsterdam it was a lot worse, but when you're smoking anything pure, it was just like. I would go to a coffee shop and people were just looking at me like I was some complete drug abuser. Like, oh my God, this guy's smoking something pure. I'm just like, well, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
They used to call straight joints Americans or Germans because those are the only ones that would really smoke it. Everybody else blends it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny, the American room at Positronics was the smoke-free, tobacco-free room. Not smoke-free, but tobacco-free. It was where we smoked all the purest.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot more of a shift going towards that. Tobacco's becoming more and more unpopular all over Europe, just like it is in America.
Don't you think that the number of tobacco smokers worldwide increases with countries like India and China having money?
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's definitely. That's where they're focusing on their market. I mean, American tobacco companies should be stopped more than cocaine drug lords, in my opinion. They're doing more damage to society than any of the legal drugs that are allowed to be pushed around, or mainly tobacco.
And that's why they gave up on the American market, Sam, is because the rest of the world market was much larger. They weren't going to hem and haw over a shrinking American market when you've got burgeoning Indian and Chinese populations that encourage smoking to this day.
Well, you know what it really speaks to is education, because the American market is too educated and is actually weaning off of tobacco. And what the tobacco companies are fighting in those foreign markets is then packaging it with the ugliness that Europeans forced them to, and actually educating people. So they don't want to see everyone get educated to the shit of their product, because they know what's going to happen.
Right.
Well, I mean, they're forced in the U.S. You know, there's the education that's going on in the U.S. was forced. The tobacco companies are forced to campaign against themselves and put out that education. So that hasn't happened in those countries yet. So
I just see the tobacco agenda as a clear and simple. Wow, John, there's something wrong with John's mic when he unmutes it. There's like a real crazy feedback. You got to figure that out, Johnny B. But what I was going to say is that I look at the tobacco agenda as like a straight-up eugenics program. It's a population control. It kills millions of people worldwide every year. It's a pretty heavy thing, the tobacco issue. So it's hard when you think of it like that. It's hard to allow someone to smoke tobacco around you.
well, and also, you know, it's like, think about this. This is the easiest way to think about it. For every cigarette is 30 minutes off your life. So if you have 4 or 5 cigarettes a day, you know, hours off your life. So it's like if you work a 12-hour shift and you chain smoke, right, and you have like 8 cigarettes a day, that's like 4 hours. So really, you work 12-hour shift and you gave 4 hours of your life. It's a good way to look at it.
Yep. It's definitely pretty heavy. I feel blessed that I just stayed away from tobacco as a young person. I never thought it was cool. I never wanted to try it really, and it made me sick.
Smoked one cigarette?
No.
Not even one.
No, I couldn't. They made me sick. I actually used to turn green and throw up when my friends smoked them just beside me.
So you got sick just from being near it. You never took one puff.
I took a puff off of a cigarette one time and threw up.
Same thing happened to me in Morocco. I was in Morocco, and the Moroccan buddy I was smoking with handed me a pile of teeth, but it was mixed with black tobacco. It's what he smoked.
Jesus.
And I had a little pile of teeth next to his that was just pure. And I smoked the one with the black tobacco, and wham, bam, I turned green and threw up.
Well, you know, I had a friend of mine telling me a story that he went to the Amazon jungle and did the
Ayahuasca.
ayahuasca. Thank you. Rude, but part of their process was like constantly blowing tobacco smoke in his face and tobacco drinks, and he absolutely hates tobacco. And he was like, and what they do is they blow it in your face. The shamans are. And they try to like induce you to throw up, so that like he basically spent like days just throwing up as part of this like trip in the dark with a little flashlight, like, you know, massive amount of disbursement out of the mouth and out of your butt, you know.
You got to remember, Tony, that the original tobaccos as used by the American Indians were much more psychoactive than the tobacco that's grown today. What they're growing the white bread, the white mouse of tobacco. You know, they've got it for taste, but not for psychoactivity. Whereas the original ones, they used them all different ways. You know, snuffs and smoking it, and the people who took it said it was psychedelic.
Well,
Hey,
maybe
speaking of nausea, just reading the news, the headlines here, Miss Just Say No herself has finally passed away. And Miss Reagan has finally died.
Isn't that your old neighbor, Todd?
Time to spark a, I think we
Really?
need to blow some
I know
smoke.
my old neighbor.
You know,
I got into an accident with Secret Service one day.
Her soul will need the smoke to get lifted, because otherwise she's going the other way.
So you can choose to blow your smoke in her direction if you'd like. That's your choice. All I'm saying is that ding dong, the wicked witches.
We can all say goodbye and just say yo.
Just say yo.
How about this? Nancy Reagan, who obviously came up with the infamous "Just Say No" campaign, and this could be a rumor, but I'd heard it years ago, and I got like a set list of it was like the CD or whatever. It was like the Air Force One music playlist, and on that playlist, which apparently she chose the music, was Ziggy Marley, and the song was, or maybe it was Rita Marley and Ziggy Marley. It was like, "Hey Rasta man, hey what you say, give me some of that sensei," and that was from the Air Force One playlist. And I always thought, even if it wasn't true, I thought, what a fucking just beyond hypocritical person to come out with a campaign. Just say no. That was a devastating campaign.
They were actors. They were pretending. They lived in Delaware. They lived in mansions. They had friends that got high and did drugs because that made them cool. They were hypocrites. They were bigots, and they were liars. They were otherwise known as actors. And when they're pretending to be something they're not, that's all we ever saw was the front, you know?
Yeah.
Well, look how many generations have been, transformed or transfixed by the lies and misinformation. I mean, 30-plus years ago, it was nothing but marijuana bad, marijuana equals heroin. And just, last year, they finally removed marijuana from even its list of discussion topics. So, congratulations, everybody, on doing such a fucking good job. We got marijuana out of fucking dare.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That is a big thing. No more brainwashing the little kids.
Yeah.
That's huge because that's what a lot of dare really centered on. I mean, and that's why meth and all this has continued to flourish, and it's cheaper and more accessible than ever, is because of great job of miseducation and ignorance and keeping everybody dumb. Great job on that. I mean, got to give the police services a great job of keeping everybody ignorant.
Well, and also what Todd said, think about it. Like, Ronald Reagan was actually an actor, so that would be like if Matthew McConaughey decided to be the president, and his role for 4 years was to act like a president. I mean, he's an actor. We voted
like
him
some reality show host, like Trump.
Or like
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston is a chemist, right? Bryan Cranston is a terribly talented actor who portrayed a chemist. He's not a chemist. He's an actor who
What do you mean
played
that doesn't
a chemist.
qualify him to be a chemist?
No.
He's got a white lab coat, dude.
He's
That's
got
right.
a lab coat with his name on it, and he's
I'm
got
pretty sure he invented blue ice.
Yeah, but
And they use face masks.
I can tell you that the chemistry in Breaking Bad is pretty accurate. They got things pretty right, such that if a discriminating chemist like myself were to watch the show, that they would not fuck up and say the wrong shit. They said all the right shit in there, so they had a good chemist consulting the script for sure.
I could see you wearing a shirt that said "Science, bitch."
Yeah, well, here I got the what is this? The RX here. Yeah, science, bitch, right? This is the when the medicine takes shirt. So.
Yeah, this is Meth Church now. That's right. This
Yeah,
is
Meth
Meth
Church.
Church episode 1. Today
Not
we're going to be
Methodist.
down to.
Does that mean we're all Methodist?
I was gonna say
Yeah.
you
Yes.
could have different divisions of Hash Church and just have the Meth Church as Methodist.
Well, no, you can just add this to the meth dip, right? You can do a bong rip, terp dip, and then a meth dip, I guess.
Add the rosin dip in there. How's my mic now?
The wrong church here. Wait a second. Is this Hash Church? Wait, what the fuck?
That
Your
sounded
mic's
better.
better, John.
Okay. I had my computer hooked up to my speakers, so I had to change it back to the speakers for the computer.
So, John, you've been playing with gas chromatography, right? How's that going for you?
Well, I've been pretty much down for the last 2 months. I try to do a little bit of testing, and I gotta redo. I gotta get back in there. I've been kind of like, I gotta get in there. I'll be in there this week. I gotta redo some things. I had some other people. I had Paul over, and he was working on the machine, and I just gotta redo some work on it. Plain and simple. Can't wait to get back.
Who's watching you, Justin?
Pardon me?
Who's watching you though? So you know, if you're testing all your friends' stuff and it's all coming out 30% on flowers,
None of it is.
91% on concentrates. Who's watching you? You know.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Nothing's coming out of 30%. Everything's at 16, 14, 12, basic numbers. Everything I'm running, I've seen the same, like the Congolese run by Great Cross and MDM Labs and mine. They're all within the same ballpark, within like, 0.5%, stuff like that. So I got results sitting right beside me, lots of them. I've been running tons of stuff. So
Did you run that CBN stuff, that red hash?
I haven't run yet. Me and Mark haven't had a chance to even get together before he left because I just got out of the hospital and he was taking off and I wasn't going anywhere. So.
Hey, we shouldn't be saying anything good about Dare.
Pardon me?
No, not you, John. So sorry. Somebody in Hash Church just pointed out that Dare's front page, dare.org, is blasting the incorrect information that pro-marijuana people are putting out about them.
Oh yeah, because it was on Facebook. Because 95% of everything on Facebook is a masquerade site and horribly.
No, dare.org is dare.org, bro.
Dare.org.
What's dare.org?
It's really their website, and they really. That's great to see they're still crazy after all these years.
What does it say?
Kennedy was all of a sudden going to creep in and show up and go, "Hey, how's it going, everybody?" No.
So
What are you saying?
It's a government agency that has to feed itself, so it has to perpetuate itself, and so it has to keep its lies going, its misinformation going, and it's
posting on pro-drug
all
website.
little toys and things that you go to. Before DARE, even I remember having the drug officer come into our class with that really cool briefcase of drugs and open it up and it's like, "This is drugs," and everybody's like, "What are drugs? We've never heard of drugs before. What are these drugs things?" And we got to see that crappy bleached out grass in the tube and this tight little toothpick thing they called a joint and, scared us with all this propaganda. And so, that was going pre-DARE. So
none of those are sold at drugstores. They're not drugs. Drugs are sold at drugstores made by drug companies, right? Those are drugs. What he showed you was a joint and cannabis, right? Is that right?
Well, as well as Benny's, cocaine, everything.
So we're basically back on the fuck DARE campaign. All right, and Nancy died finally. Is that what happened? Okay.
Hey, welcome, Horatio.
And remember that first DARE, that first Just Say No, was done here in Oakland with the green shirts.
Something to be proud of.
Something to bring home for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that was
something we took pride in when we were building Oaksterdam and stuff like that, when we were building the Bulldog and all that stuff like that. It gave us great pride. It gave us great pride to know that we were doing our best to take down the lies.
Hey,
from the home plate.
Let's be respectful. Let's all smoke for the First Lady. Let's all take a big bong rip for the First Lady.
It's just wonderful that her legacy will be tarred with such a failed and abysmal policy.
No, I hope her spirit gets higher and higher and higher.
Look, I was interviewed by Ron Reagan Jr., and he said they smoked pot. He was turned on by his sister. He said that he had heard the family had used it, etc. They were actors hanging around Hollywood. Come on. It was amazing, the hypocrisy and how it really was.
Am I the only person that thinks that George Bush went and hired Ronald Reagan to be the pretend president while the former head of the CIA ran shit for as long as possible? Doing it that way, Bush got 12 years in the White House.
You mean the guy who was fired by the previous president came back and became vice president, and there's nothing wrong with that?
America's great. I'm glad we kept making hash the whole time.
You can try that too.
So, Bubbleman, what amazing hash have you seen? I saw pictures of a man with little logs of hash there in Jamaica. What else have you seen?
I've seen all sorts of different things, you know, from oils to obviously the hydrocarbon, the CO2. Lots of people doing butane and CO2 down here right now, closed loops and CO2 extractors, and then of course always water hash. Water hash is obviously a little bit more difficult to do out here. You really need to have the the setup with the dehumidifier and the AC and all that sort of stuff. You got to be able to dry it properly. But it's been nice. The bud's been really nice. The rosin's been really nice.
My pants.
Seen some variety of water hashes that were pretty tasty looking. About to supercharge Archie's joint here with some Girl Scout cookies, bubble hash.
So I take it since it's the spring, everybody's getting plants in the ground now?
Yeah, exactly. Now that the growing season's coming, so it's what they call like the big plants would grow from now till harvest. You could get plants to veg a little bit longer instead of 12, what is it, like 13 and a half hours or something? You get an hour and a half extra. So you get that extra hour and a half, and it makes a big difference in the tropics just from, we use a bigger, obviously a 6-hour gap. They just need an hour and a half here, and it's just enough. Obviously, you can use supplemental lighting and veg your plants for longer, but this is the season that you can grow the bigger trees.
What are they fertilizing with there? Is they using local product, or are they importing now?
In regards to the seed or the
plants themselves, what are they fertilizing them with? Or prepping the soil with, since I know it's in ground outdoors.
Well, some people use chicken guano, some people use goat guano, some people use bat guano, some people use seabird guano. What else am I forgetting? Those are pretty much the ones, eh? Yeah. So I think the rat bat, which is a particular type of bat that shits in caves, and they live in they hang out in did you see the neaseberry tree right out here? It's a nice tree, eh? Yeah, they love the neaseberry. It's almost like, it looks like a kiwi, but it's not a kiwi at all. And so the rat bats feed on this fruit, and their shit is just extremely rich in all of the things that cannabis seems to require. Also, the soil here is very rich. It's an orange soil that you'll see in a lot of the parishes that has a lot of bauxite mineral and different things present in it that keep in mind as well. Some of the island has artesian wells and springs in cave systems. I was at a friend's house the other day up on Orange Hill, and as we were driving in, there's a 5-gallon bucket with a rope, and I said, "What's that for?" And he stopped the car, and we walked over, and it was just a hole in the rock that went down into the underground river. And he would just put the pail down and lift it up and pull out 5 gallons of beautiful, clean water. And so he's also got a giant blue hole on his property as well, which is absolutely spectacular. So you get all of those cards, you get that water, and you get that good earth, and you get that good guano, and it seems to be that right there will produce some pretty incredible outdoor herb.
So any of the herb you're seeing is from last year or indoor?
No, I've seen lots of herb from just this last harvest or whatever. People are harvesting every week in Jamaica, maybe every day. Maybe every day someone harvests ganja in Jamaica. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. There's just that much of it. I went and visited a field the other day, and we passed 2 other fields. And I was like, "Oh, is that your field?" He's like, "No, man." I was like, "Oh, is that your field?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "How many fucking fields do we have to walk past to get to your field?" Getting crazy out there.
Are there more fields than what there were when we were there a couple years ago? Since they've changed?
What's that, Johnny?
Are there more fields now than what there were when I was there a couple of years ago?
Oh, yeah, it seems like it, yeah.
I was going to say, because before, we had problems finding them. By now, it sounds like they're just everywhere, which is cool.
So what are the common problems that farmers there are experiencing there? What are the common ones?
A real common problem here in Jamaica that I'm seeing is that the farmers also grow food. And a lot of them grow a vegetable called callaloo. And callaloo really attracts bugs from all over. So I don't think a lot of them realize that by putting them in their gardens, they're creating more work to take care of bugs. Now, a lot of the Jamaican farmers are on the next level of work ethic. When, you know, the indoor grower doesn't even want to spend an hour in his grow, you get these dudes going out to their field for hours just finding caterpillars that have burrowed their way into the stalk or trying to hide under a leaf, and they'll literally peel those things off by hand. In a 400 plant field, they'll do that under the hot Jamaican sun, no shade. So it's impressive to say the least. The work ethic. The ganja farmer in Jamaica is not in any way, shape, or form a lazy man. He's working
But it's
hard.
very educated on the caterpillars and the other type of blights, but there's no types of lacewigs and things like that that tend to flourish, or what are the main bugs that are attacking plants there?
Well, they have these types of moths that burrow into the leaf and go around the leaf. I've seen little flies. I've seen some spider mites in some parts. You've seen that, eh?
Spider mites.
And then there's mildew that happens on certain strains, and there's definitely like caterpillars, aphids, the ants.
Are you talking white powdery mildew, or are you talking like botrytis and things like that?
I'd say both, but also white powdery mildew for sure.
Which strains are they running then? Like, are they got different strains now? Like, everybody running like just hybrids and stuff from seed?
Well, everyone, you know, it's like the herb scene. Everyone comes from all over the world and comes to Jamaica, so you'll see all sorts of variety depending on how many groups of people that you know. It's much like being back at home, John, where commercially everyone you bump into is going to have the pink kush. You're not really excited about it. But then there's guys like you and me and D420K and our close friends, and we all have high quality strains that we share and give each other. And it's like, oh, John's got his Medi Kush. Bubbleman's got his Sweet Skunk and the Congolese and the Astro Boy, and we pass those around. I think that it's very much the same here. Until I met Archie, I didn't even really know that level of quality could be grown on the island. Really just perfectly looking buds, trimmed all beautiful and dry really well. Like, he's rocking dehumidifiers and air conditioners, and like, he is not drying his herb like the normal outdoor Jamaican farmer.
Is the buds, when you get them, are they trimmed or are they leaf intact?
They're hanging with leaf intact. Hang to trim.
Yeah, when we were in the field, they were hitting the sand off of them and hanging them upside down, and we were watching the dirt go into the triangle, just like, ah.
Yeah, John, that was tough. What John's talking about is when the farmers pull them out by the roots instead of cutting them. And so they'll pull them out by the roots, and then when they hang them, or sometimes they'll just throw them on a big tarp and wrap them up to carry them back to the area where they're going to trim. It's definitely treating it more like an agricultural product than a medicine, where we're like, oh, no, like, let's hang those in a clean area. Let's not have the roots dripping all the mud down onto them. So just simple things, and people like Archie have taken it upon themselves to, you know, interact and have dialogue with other growers from around the world and other indoor growers from Jamaica as well. There's a small little crew of them that all have their own little sort of piece of growing nice indoor weed here. It's just a way of sharing the information, you know. It's the internet too. I'm sure that anything you need to learn, you can go onto the internet. You can come on to Hash Church and watch what we're talking about sometimes. Although we do have to have more. We got to have a grow special one day with just the full-blown Rob and Sam and like a variety of it. Maybe even get Alexander back in here, get Mel Frank in here. Do the grow episode, Todd. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah,
I like it.
100%. More people want to know.
There's so many tricks and techniques that, I mean, each one of you, those names even specified, could teach or at least, you know, give people hints to, you know. Sam, it's not like you don't know a thing or two, eh?
No, I don't know a thing or two, eh?
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about that.
No thing or two for Sam.
Just little things. I mean, we all base our hash around the plant. The growing is the first step of getting the hash, right? So.
Exactly. I'll get Remo in on that episode too. Someone mentioned his name.
Have you seen anybody in Jamaica growing with lights to get their plants bigger before they turn their lights off and let them flower? Because they'll flower 12 months a year if you let them.
Yes, we have. You do that ever?
Yeah.
A little bit.
No, another T5 for them.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he says, Archie says he's used T5s to veg with. I've seen other guys just string some light bulbs through their field with a little battery, and it
that
just creates
worked.
enough light.
And that worked.
Yeah, I think it's the way it works is maybe to turn the light on at night, like at 2 or 3 in the morning or something, so it goes on, and then the plants wake up rather than try to keep the light on while the sun is setting. It was one dude that told me that he had a better reaction that way.
Well, it's cheaper that way because you can use less electricity. In other words, go ahead and let it be dark for 4 hours after sunset. Then turn your lights on for a few hours, break the night up, and bingo, they don't flower.
Exactly what he was doing, yep. And he just had a couple of wires going right through the whole way up to his place, climbing the mountain. You saw these 2 wires, and when we got up to the field,
little blue agricultural incandescents that were 60 watts. I used 1 to 10 square meters, 100 square feet, and that prevented flowering, kept them in veg.
Wow. Interesting. Lots of other names got dropped. DJ Short, Subcool, Matt, the Great Gardener. Just some different people that are known for their growing styles online. We almost got 1,000 people here on Hash Church, 957. And we're actually really just started Hash Church. The normal time would have been 34 minutes ago. So that's very cool that many people made it out. Yeah, I've invited Jigga before. He's like, him and Flux don't so much want to be on like videos and stuff, so.
Why did you start so early this morning?
Well, because I'm 3 hours later in Jamaica. I've got to drive to Kingston today. I'm supposed to be out of my hotel like an hour and a half ago, but my friend owns the place, so it's no problem. And I got to return a car and do a few things in Kingston, and I'm by myself, so I'm kind of like, this will be my first by myself trip. Archie does it like every weekend, 3.5 hours. It'll take me like 5 hours. I did it with Tony once. We drove across from Negril to Kingston, and I mean, we only really almost died about 7 times. Wouldn't you say, Tony? About half a dozen times?
I think we almost died about fucking 10 times on that one bus ride.
Yeah, that bus ride was serious business, dude.
So, Mark, are you taking a death race taxi, or are you going to do the death race and actually try to do the pothole gauntlet of across the nation?
Well, I've rented a car. My friend hooked me up with a dude in Kingston, so I rented a car, and that car needs to be back today. So in less than 6 hours, actually. So I'm going to drive across the country.
Yeah, I think that closing time on a Sunday is pretty fixed. If you don't have that car through that gate, you're going to pay.
I hope it's okay. It's going to be interesting. Every little town I drive through is going to be full of people in their church clothes walking on the side of the road and stuff. And I did get pulled over on the way here. Even though I wasn't speeding, the police pulled me over and required that I bought them a drink, so I bought them a drink.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You're telling me they chased you down, pulled you over, and said, Mr. Bubbleman, come with us. We know you're a busy man.
No, in Lucy they set up a roadblock, and they set it up around a corner, and when I went through Lucy, the kids had just gotten out of school. I was going about 70 at the time, so I slowed right down to 40 because they were all in the road, and I was like, I didn't feel comfortable going any faster. And when I went around the next corner, this dude's standing there pulling me over and telling me, oh yeah, we got you going 70, and I was like, listen, I was going 70 way before, like around the corner where you can't even see, 2 corners ago. Then I slowed down to 40. I didn't even really bother. He was like, you want to see the radar gun? I was like, no, man. I want to give you 2,000 J's and be on my way. So $20 later, I was driving back to Negril. That's how Jamaica works. They're just looking for a little something.
Yeah.
Just tell them flat out, no, what I want to do is give you $20. That's what I want to do today. And
He wanted 50, bro.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of like Mexico.
Yeah, well, you know, the beautiful thing about Jamaica is if they say 5,000, you can be like, look, how about 500? And he'll be like, yes, Mom. Sometimes no. I didn't try the 500, but from 5 to 2, I felt pretty confident that it was going to work out for me. So it's all good. You know, the country has a bunch of different sort of cultural differences, and I mean, the cops in my country used to sit and nail people with like dozens of pounds of weed and cash and stuff, and then take that shit and arrest you. So, in my opinion, I'm pretty stoked on police that just take a little bribe and let you bugger off on your day.
It's that kind of weird thing where I'm like, $20. I can't think of how many roadblocks in Canada people would be amazed if they could only pay $20 to get through.
Oh my God!
People would be throwing money at the roadblock.
People would pay 20 grand, Horatio. Like the guy that just got nabbed with all that marijuana.
Yeah, did you see all that drugs, all that Rick Simpson oil that's going to poison the youth? I'm like, youth don't want to smoke that.
Let's hope the cop isn't watching Hash Church, right? He'll be like, shit, next time I pull someone over, I'm going to ask for more money.
I don't think so. I think he's spending that 20.
And get this. This is what happened recently. I have a friend that has a club in Vancouver. He's in his 3rd stage of getting his provisional license. He drove home, and over the weekend, his employee came to his house on Monday to drop off the float. Cops pulled him behind them. They were not in Vancouver RCP jurisdiction and took their money. He said it was organized crime. He said, it's from my club downtown. He goes, yeah, that's illegal. And gave him a fucking receipt for the money they took. And fucking drove away. So, this whole system's kind of screwed in how they're trying to license these clubs in Vancouver, but yet once you get out of Vancouver, you get RCP pulling these guys over and taking their cash, saying it's illegal. It's a mess system right now. Just happened, and I mentioned it on Pot TV the other day and stuff. And it's Canada's kind of doing a weird thing. Justin Trudeau doesn't want to decrim. He doesn't want to give pardons on people who had. He's kind of going a little backwards in a way, but wait and see, right? Cross our fingers.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. He's a politician, so generally what they do is lie to get elected and then do the opposite of what they said. We'll see what he does, man. Maybe he won't. He did do a few cool things when he got into office, and he definitely has a lot of shit to do, but I don't think it's too much to ask Mr. Trudeau to stop arresting people, tell the police to hold back on that. And I understand that they're worried too, right, John? Like they're worried that people will just do what they did with the MMAR, which is blow up, grow as many lights and pounds as they can to sell on the black market. And I think that's what they're trying to avoid right now. So they're in a difficult position where they want to give it to us, but at the same time, the way we want it is not the way they want to give it to us.
Yeah, so they're gonna get these clubs are gonna have to buy from LPs or something. It's not gonna like your buddy can grow weed and sell it at a club in Vancouver. So that will change. We're seeing it because Trudeau made that announcement, and the next day all of the shit started going on, right? So it's interesting. It's
he also announced that from the Crown, the throne. That was a throne announcement, the cannabis announcement they made, which is like not. They've never done that before. Like they've lied about all sorts of things, but generally when they go to the throne and say things on there, that's usually like the big ritual that this is like. It's on the list more so than anything that wasn't, you know, revealed at that throne seating or throne speech, however they call it, which is some weird queen shit. You guys got to look up. Obviously, we're Commonwealth, Jamaica, Canada.
Well, pretty much. We're going to get legal in Canada in some way, form, or another. Is it going to be in how we want it? No, probably not, but we're going to have access at some point. We're going to have big licensed producers supplying, and hopefully, well, for patients like myself and ill Canadians, not just one, all ill Canadians, are going to be able to grow their own medicine. So pretty much that's going to open up a window for a lot of people for who'll be able to just go get a license again. It's not like it wasn't grandfathered, he said all. So that means now you can reapply and stuff. We're seeing how that's going to pan out, right? So there's going to be a lot more people growing now that they're going to know that they can grow legally with a medical license. It will happen. We'll see a lot more growing.
Don't you kind of wish, John, that they were all not using patients as their shields to sell weed and pay their mortgages and car payments and stuff?
It's I don't like it at all. It is what it is.
On the other hand, I do understand the importance of a guy like Horatio needing to do his work and bettering the community for the work that he does. But it's also like a fine line where you've got like all these other guys that aren't like Horatio, just blasting cans in their house, like the dude that blew his pregnant woman out of the apartment a couple years ago back in Vancouver. That was heavy shit, bro. And it just seems like that it's just not being. I don't really know how to. I do not know how I would personally do it if I was Justin Trudeau. Everyone says, "Oh, just do it like this, 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 and this," and it's like, yeah, but there's so many people ready to take advantage of that right. I guess just let everyone grow it and sell it, and whoever buys it and sells it, maybe that's the way to do it. Just fuck, it's a plant.
Is going to put lots of LPs in, give access, and try and crush the black market with flooding the system.
Right.
Well, look at it
The
this
only
way.
way to crush the black market is the prices have to be so fucking cheap. Nobody wants to have a black market.
Bingo.
They get it down to $1 a gram, and they're just not going to grow it anymore. Prices.
Uruguay retails for 50 cents a gram.
There you go.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
are
in
we
some
going to
ways,
commit
that's why-
suicide on the bud?
Well, in
But
some
time
ways,
out. Does Uruguay have that fire?
I can't say because I haven't been to Uruguay, but I can say I can grow it cheaper than that and make a profit at that price. That's $500 a kilo. Fucking easy.
Outdoors, yeah, not indoors.
Yeah, no, it would have to be outdoors or in limited greenhouses, passive ones that are really cheap to run.
Right. Well, what a great quote from you there, Sam. I can do that easy. And, a lot of people don't want to hear that because they quite like those $5,000 kilo prices, and it's hard to blame them. But at the same time, we're really, I support it getting as cheap as possible.
Well, I don't think anybody will disagree that if you have a good climate, like in California, where a variety can finish outdoors, and you put it in the ground with a nice big smart pot, that you can get 2 to 5 kilos. The good experienced growers are doing this. Now, it doesn't cost more than, what, $100? Or maybe the first time it would because you got to buy your smart pots and your soils, but after that, what do you think it costs? It's just not very expensive. Now, you've got overhead, you've got land, you've got labor, you've got manicuring, but it's fundamentally not expensive to produce cannabis.
Another great quote. It's fundamentally not expensive to produce cannabis.com.
Yeah, and it also should be fundamentally not expensive to extract cannabis either. So in taking the medicine from the plant, it really shouldn't be an expensive process, even by most industrial standards right now. The medicine is already presented itself in such a way that it can be extracted to a high degree of efficiency and made into high quality extracts.
Yeah, here's a good example. First time I went to Morocco, 1971. You could buy kilos of hash for $5 to $25, $50, depending on the quality. Then later that year, I went to Afghanistan. $5 a kilo to maybe $25, $30 a kilo for the very, very best from bulk, from Mazar Sharif. So, I mean, cannabis is fundamentally not expensive.
Very cool.
Start fees. Once I got my room built, it takes me. I've cut my hydro down to like $600 from $1,400. So my costs are really cheap, roughly about $300 a month with nutrients, $400 a month to run my room. It's quite efficient now.
I actually, for the reasons that we're stating, look forward to big corporate cannabis coming in, crashing the price of prohibition has created and making cannabis available to everybody. And if there's no criminal penalties and we can all grow our own chosen cultivars in our backyard to the best of our abilities, it will be a better world.
Damn right it will be. And connoisseurs will keep doing what they're doing, and the rest of the world will just go like the sheep, and they'll just go to the Save-On Foods or the grocery store and get what they're used to.
Well, you know what, though? I don't want to call them sheep, man. You know, I go to the grocery store and buy bread. I don't bake bread, man, because it's easy to go to the grocery store and get some really good bread, and I get variety, and I can try different kinds. I mean, I can't wait until people can experience that with cannabis. I mean, you go down to the stores here in the more affluent neighborhoods, and the grocery stores are 4 aisles of wine. When's it going to be 4 aisles of kind bud? I mean, come on. Why not? You know, why not?
And also, the
They
market
sell a lot more food, by the way.
The market can support, you know, lots of middle-class weed that's if people want cheaper prices, or it can also support, you know, elite high-end weed. I mean, look at wine now. Probably most of the wine sold is quite inexpensive, but yet they also have $100, $500 bottles of wine. So I say, you know, every different smokes for different folks. Give the people what they want.
True.
100%.
Or as they say in Jamaica, scene.
There's
Scene.
another quote. Give the people what they want.
Yeah. More cannabis in this world is only going to make the world a calmer, more compassionate space. I don't think it's a bad thing.
I don't either. And
you know, all the efforts I've put in has definitely never been with the fantasy of protecting it so that the prices stay high and that people don't have to have real jobs and they can grow a little plot of pot and sell it for hella high prices. I mean, my whole fantasy has been that pot prices would just crash and that no one would go to jail for growing it, and you could do whatever you wanted with it. You could sell it for pennies, or you could keep it. It's kind of like tomatoes. Go grow your heirloom tomatoes, but it's going to be hard selling them for $400 a pound when you can get similar varieties at Whole Foods for $4. So this is where I think cannabis is going to go.
Does anybody have a concern, like, what is this mid-grade bud? Because, like, I did a tour this week and met a bunch of new people who all wasted my week and my time with what they thought was awesome, what they thought was fire, what they thought was coming from the island. I started to run the names through the internet, and then all the websites came literally back, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this repertoire of shatter before. Oh, it also comes as a repertoire of these 5 strains of bud. And when you go through them, they all have that same smell. It smells like wood, spice, and lard. And I'm like, these aren't strains. This is just that bag smell that something's gone, and maybe if I twist it, it'll start to smell a little like sugary candy. But the people who are all looking at it are all high-fiving. They're all pretending these are different. I see different leaf patterns, but the actual, what makes it medicine to me, along with the cannabinoids, is completely gone. Is that going to be this utopian norm? Because they wanted the same prices as compared to, you know, things with terps. They just lived in a different market where it's like, if you don't like this, this is going to the East Coast where they don't know a damn thing about it. It seems that we're just going to be fostering that system, but it's going to be corporate people being able to do it at a large level. Like, I completely wish the government would push the button and flush out all these people growing this shit weed. They dominate the market, they flood the market, they come from these 160 like grows that produce so much actual bud for the people that they do represent large producers, and it's absolute shit. So that's kind of where,
Listen.
When will it get terpy?
Don't worry about it. You're worrying about the wrong thing. If you really care, devote your life to producing a higher quality product at a cheaper price for people. Then who's going to buy their swag when they can buy your great stuff at cheaper prices?
And look, the thing is, that's my question. Everyone says they can produce this for cheaper, but then the actual final product starts to get blurrier and blurrier. Like, I look at Mendo Bud, and I see it, and I'm like,
have you ever produced by the ton? Have you ever produced by the ton?
That's not my question. Let's say process by the ton. So I look at 5% versus 13% as double the labor today. That's kind of why I look at it. I'm like, this weed has more to do than just to be looked at as weed. If I have 10 tons, but the resin content is low, for instance, the solvent use goes up, and that's what then drives the price unnecessarily. That's kind of the question. I find people charge more for trim.
That because somebody has tons, it's low quality. And that's
that's my question to you. You're the answer to why is it that big plants usually suck.
First criteria is quality, and you don't bend nothing to achieve quality, and you increase quantity, you can keep the quality just as high.
Okay, like I brought up the slave labor concept. What would be your first step to quality? Is it human eyes? Is it actual labor force, or is it genetics? Is it soil? What would you say? Because look, a lot of people are going to say, I'm going to grow some plants outside this year, and I'm going to grow big, and all I see is disaster coming, because no one from that community really gives advice outside of their circle. So there's not a lot of advice on growing a big plant outdoors in Canada unless you live in the mountains of gorilla territory. Like if I wanted to grow some 1-to-1 CBD plant, I'm going to get myself a little greenhouse and produce for my epilepsy. What would you say is the #1 thing to maintaining quality when scale increases? Is it the amount of hours I spend per day? Should it be more like the Jamaican farmer? Is that the key?
No. Come on. #1 is genetics, but you also need an environment that allows you to finish it, both from a nutritional and environmental point of view, but also from a legal point of view, or your neighbor's not stealing it, whatever. Yeah, so all those things are important.
Well, you got to make sure that your crop's not going to microbially foul. You can grow the best herb you want if it becomes fouled with fungus or bacteria. That's not a good thing. So yeah, you need the right facility.
You know, I actually think in the future that really good, high-quality flowers will cost more than really potent extracts, because it will be easier to extract cannabis than it will be to produce super high-quality, what we used to call kind bud, you know, and we used to eagerly buy it, 400 an ounce. That was just unbelievably like a little bag of gems that someone put love into every little detail. And, you know, doing bulk extractions ratio is not going to be a problem in the future. Most of the decaffeinated coffee and stuff that we consume is done by the ton.
We don't have a product that's like decaffeinated coffee. That's what I mean. When you start to bulk process, you start to deal with, you might end up with 5 pounds of contaminant that have to be removed instead of a little filter plate.
Technically, Horatio, we actually used a patent that decaffeinated coffee to make things like BHO. And that was my point months and months and months ago. We do use food extraction technologies. That's what we're replicating now, making things like BHO, extracts, the rose water, cannabis water, you know, hydra, all the stuff we're doing is really food extraction and old extraction technology.
I know, Todd, but when I work with peers in the BHO market, and I can see when they decide, I'll filter today or I won't filter today, and then I look at a product market where I'm like, these patients can't tell whether it has 10% lipids or 0% lipids. It's not so simple and it's not so blurry because we can't test for lipids. Mark Scialdone knows that, and if you run trim, you're going to get way more plant fat and waxes than if you run bud. So the actual bulk economy leans people towards trim, and then they have more shit to clean out, which gives people an option to change their market. They're like, well, fuck that, I'll put it in a vape pen so you can't see it. That's what I mean. We're going up in scale, but the techniques to actually keep it to the point where we could say it holds some pharmaceutical grade are not being refined. We're just going faster and skipping those steps. We used to do a 2-solvent dewax, and that became unhip because of production speed. Now we do a 1-solvent dewax. That's not an answer. What does that mean, 1-solvent dewax? Dewax is not a term.
This is still in a small form. I mean, everything that's going on is on small scale compared to if you look at, you know, you drive down the 405 and you see the Miller beer factories, you know, silo after silo after silo. When this changes, the whole way we do things is going to change. It'll be out in the open. It'll be the most efficient with the best equipment under the best circumstances, because you'll have to, because it'll be like building a car. You'll have competition. There'll be others building Ferraris, and you'll have to conform to what will become the industry norm. And that norm isn't going to happen until we have the freedom to operate in a way that's open and transparent and competitive.
And it allows the raw materials to be cheap enough. As soon as the raw materials, the finished cannabis plants, can be produced cheaply, legally, then things like dry sift will reemerge as serious contenders for the markets.
Well, I also heard a lot of solvent coming out of your mouth, Horatio, and a lot of we. And I would say try to figure it out without a chemical would be the first step.
Every market's different. So if I lived in Oregon for $400, I have an option to figure it out. But in Canada, I might for $2,200 have a bag of wood, spice, and lard. That's the problem with the market. And of course, that guy has 50 packs. And the one guy you meet that bud smells decent, he wants $3,500 for it because he's put in that love and that heart, and he wants to compete in the bud market. So as everyone's bred out of different conditions, like I see legal solvent extracts in Colorado, but they're not breaking any ground when it comes to improving the actual methodology of the product. It's still coming out of inventions out of some guy's setup who just refuses to blow up, who makes a better machine. So legality and all of those things has not made Colorado the marvel of cannabis, the future of cannabis at all. It still seems to be California and these rogue places. Look, I come out of Vancouver. No one would have thought Vancouver was about to bring the next anything, and then the terpene extraction guy sits 3 years strong with nobody competing, and I'm stuck in Vancouver, where if I went down to Oregon, the people I could work with, the speed I could move my work further than just being like, I can't believe you brought me out here for weed that should be thrown in the river. It would be a completely different world. So that's kind of why I'm always asking, because regional situations are never going to change. If Canada,
so Horatio, one thing is, and that any good hash maker will know, is unless you're creating and you're growing, as a grower, you can make the best stuff because you can grow the best stuff. If you are unfortunately suffering from having to process the material of others all the time, you're really never even going to know the full potential of your own hash making art, because you're not in the ability to control what it is you're starting with in the first place. And when you get to that place, which everyone will be doing, because no one's going to want to rely on the labor of others when they can do it themselves more efficiently, cleaner, and know where it comes from. It's just cannabis is going to, and then it's going to be proprietary strains. People are going to want to do their own variety, their own cultivars, and cannabis is going to change as we know it, I think, super radically. And people can say they think they know what's going to happen, but I certainly don't. And I think if it's going to mimic anything like what we see with iPhones and beer and whiskey and everything else that we have in the world, it's going to change radically.
I feel it as well, that it's going to, the mainstream, we've fought for it for so long that even as it starts to show up in mainstream culture, you can see longtime activists and cannabis users, aficionados, and lovers getting offended. Like, who the fuck are these people? Who the hell do they... It's like, those are the people we've been begging to fucking listen to us for the last, 50 years. That's who they are. Stop getting mad at them. If they want to be a part of it, all right. As long as it's not at the exclusion of anyone, I don't care who gets involved. That's the whole thing. I want it normalized. I want it available. And I want it to be extremely high quality, whether for recreation, medicine, or preventative.
And there's no reason why the highest quality in the world cannot be produced cheaply. Right now, we're producing under lights because we were driven to it. I mean, people would have never started growing under lights. Well, maybe up in Canada, I shouldn't say that. But in places like California, I mean, we're used to supplying 3/4 of the vegetables of America.
Yeah. And guys, I mean, for speaking for myself, the reason I've been really, I got so dedicated to the struggle a long time ago is two reasons. I think we should have the freedom to grow a flower, and I don't think my neighbors should get locked up, me being included, for growing a flower, And if you take those two things as the main reasons, That's really it. Once we have the freedom to grow the flowers we want ourselves, we will process them however we want ourselves. And once you stop locking us up for doing that, I think that I'm not really afraid of there being Annie's macaroni and pot at the fucking supermarket. I'm not afraid of industry coming in and producing good weed or good hash or whatever. I'm not afraid of it. I think we have to look at the main goal, which is stop locking us up and give us back our freedom. Then where the cards fall, they fall.
I agree.
It needs to be
Sam's all
removed,
taking a rip in the
removed from
distance.
Schedule 1. If it's removed from Schedule 1, we'll get the right level of investment in the industry and
Well,
be
it
able
should be
to
no
take...
schedule. What
Well, yeah,
schedule is
I know. It
tobacco in,
shouldn't,
Mark?
yeah, it shouldn't be on a schedule at all. I mean, but the point is that, like, a lot of people are waiting for that to happen in order to be able to jump in to the industry in earnest and be able to fund.
I get you, but you know what? The investors are gonna lose their pockets too, because as soon as you take away those two things, the criminal element and everyone can grow, that's now real. The profit is going to be so much lower than it is now, and people are getting into this wanting to invest on prohibition-era profiteering pricing and trying to figure out how to keep it at that level, or their books don't look good. It's not that attractive to invest into an industry that's dropping in profit value. And that's the reality of cannabis right now, and I hope it continues. I'm really not doing it for the investment potential of others. I'm really doing it to clear the prisons of my friends and neighbors. That's really my goal, and to have the freedom to grow a flower in a country that supposedly purports it's one of the freest countries in the world. It's such bullshit. You know, if we're one of the freest countries in the world, how come we can't all have cannabis fucking blowing in the breeze in our front yards? You know, so these are the points I see. I don't care about the investors as much as I care about those 2 points.
What you say is true, Todd, but at the same time, once we allow people to produce things a cheaper, better, cleaner, safer way, it's going to get cheaper, and cleaner and better.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, like, something that we've witnessed here in the lifetime of Hash Church, which is sort of the birth of or the widespread penetration of rosin, is something that now can be practiced commercially, and I've seen test results come back as high as, you know, the mid-90s, where you're recovering, you know, in high yield, a high purity, you know, form of the medicine from the plant. So to just, you know, add on to what Sam was saying, that you can produce the plant inexpensively or for, you know, low cost. You can also, for essentially the elements of a low cost process, generate high purity cannabinoids that's, you know, suitable for consumption. And you know, again, that's very unlike what we saw with the repeal of alcohol prohibition, right? Because alcohol prohibition, it was already known, you take this mash and you distill the alcohol out of it. This is a completely new process that can change not only the economics, but the way that it can be practiced just in the home. You know, you have your own home grow, you press today's buds, and that's the rosin that you smoke today, just like most of the people here on the panel do.
Or I just pressed 5 minutes ago. Yeah. To go back to Horatio, I mean, one thing is all the people you're purchasing your product from, and I know you have to, they're all just tracing the dollar. None of them are doing it because they're passionate about growing weed or anything like that. They do it purely for their pocket, and that's why they're pumping it full of sugars. We've had these talks. They pump it so full of stuff that you don't like. They spray whatever they can get on their product to get it to market, and you get stuck with that product, and it really sucks.
Yeah, but we got to look at it this way. I've met other people than the people you've met, and those people I've met were way nastier people. I get into the situation where I'm like, holy shit, it makes the guy that put sulfur on the bud seem like something I can filter out, and becomes reasonable when you accidentally slip back into the actual world that controls the underground. Like when I'm like, holy shit, the real world isn't even run on the MMAR bud that supplies dispensaries. Think about all the people that never Think about the people who never gave a shit about dispensaries, don't supply dispensaries. They send it to Ontario, Ontario sends it to Pittsburgh. That weird trade where product is constantly moving. Like I see clear from California constantly going to Michigan and then being turned into this like holy grail product. Is that like that behavior of globalism seems to never stop? If you don't like the product here, we'll send it to another region with different rules. Like,
No, that's
the only way. It has to be countrywide control. Because it makes me understand the liberals saying like we don't want to decriminalize it because it just means every criminal gets a license now.
That's one of the basic laws of the universe, Horatio. It's called cannabis osmosis. Wherever there's too much cannabis or too cheap a price or too good a quality, it goes every place else.
I gotta say it, bong rip.
Where's D420K? I haven't seen him today yet.
I know, so I just had to say it, bong rip. You gotta do bong rip.
What I was trying to say, Horatio, was if you start with really good resin, and that seems to be your problem, and I understand that, but like if the better the quality of resin you start with, the less amount of chemicals and things that you would have to use to get to the source or to get all the medicinal properties out of the plant. You know, so I'm in a totally different situation where, you know, the best of the best are competing to have their product and their resin in the things that we're doing. So I think maybe that's why it makes the you know, my first step isn't towards a solvent for an extraction. You know, it's basically like your fruit. You want to wash it, you want to collect it, and then you want to be able to standardize it, measure it.
That's why I mentioned rosin, Tony. I mentioned that just as an example of there's a.
Well, I gotta ask a question. Tony, what's the non-solvent that you are washing it with? Air?
Well, we talked about this as well.
I'm stoned, but I'm trying to follow that line of logic. I'm just like,
yeah, so
okay, non-solvent and wash. What does that mean? Define.
So you take you could take a sieving system under cold or critical temperatures and do it dry and mechanically, and then you could collect your resin that way. And that's what Sam was talking about with dry
That's
sip.
not washing it though. That's just cold separation. I mean,
and then washing it is like washing it like in bubble.
No,
So we're going to go through this
washing away your
logic that
terpenes.
everything
So
is
water is
garbage.
not a good solvent, and it's still a solvent. And we're having terpene conversations. And you know, if you wash it with water, you've washed away terpenes.
Depending on the cultivar you have, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about water as the definition. Sure, it's a solvent, but it's not being used as a solvent in the definition of dissolving the trichome.
It was only a non-solvent when we were having a cannabinoid conversation, but since the last few years have changed and now the conversation's about terpenes, water is most definitely a terpene solvent, and we all know it.
If we're
So
talking
it's solvent.
Just
So we
specific
want the
types of
terpenes.
terpenes only. To specific types of terpenes only.
Tony, take this seriously. Make me a medicine that won't bronchio irritate me to the point of quitting cannabis. Because without a solvent to separate those lipids and do it in an adult pharmaceutical way, I'm going to die and I'm not going to make it. You can to a look, it's not like I don't have a rosin press. It's not like I don't make rosin or cup-winning rosin. I know the days when the resin's for the cup, and I know when it's not, and it's good for distillate, and the cannabinoids are completely useful. So to say that, oh, well, then this isn't resin for smoking, so it goes over the hill, or goes to the solvent guys like a lower grade of person, is ridiculous, because there are many things that in a pharmaceutical setting are not for smoking, like the proteins and the other elements within cannabis, that when I isolate them out in a liquid chromatography scenario, and I'm like, well, shit, what I'm smoking now clearly represents my asthma lungs, because I'm getting no frequency back of all of the things that don't work for me, because I need to smoke a fucking ton. I love it, but without this chromatography column, even my super smooth LHO wasn't as good for me as it is now. So I love the mantra and I love all that, but when you get in a situation where I'm like, I need to inhale this now, and I'm sorry, but this rosin, you can triple paper filter it like I've tried, but the lipids transpose as long as there is terpenes to dissolve them, because the terpenes are nonpolar and there go the lipids into them. The only way to remove the fat from a rosin is to have no terpenes to make them mobile. Because we saw that when Jeff Church brought back a white puck.
Wait, time out.
Mark, can those lipids separate from the cannabinoid resin without terps?
There's no rosin, or there's no fats in the rosin. There's no lipids in rosin.
Hold on, Jeff is isolated. Wait, Jeff came on
rosin is a steam distillation process that relies on the low boiling fact that, you know, when you create that azeotrope with the water and the cannabinoids, that those things basically steam distill. It's a steam distillation process. We talked about this episodes ago.
Yeah, but that's not a fixed number. Some people rosin dry bone shit, and there's no moisture present, so they just keep cooking it until it's an oil.
Some rosin is, Horatio, some rosin is so pure in THCA that it actually turns into a glassy crystalline solid like a
absolutely. It's not like I haven't rosin my six
star. You're talking about stuff that's probably in excess of like 92 to 93% pure THCA. I mean, there's very little other material that's in there. That's just point. I've seen analysis.
Mark, you're speaking cup entries. Like, I know how to make shatter rosin. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm looking at is when someone says we're doing it big, that's not what I see flowing out of the rosin press. I see a mixed mataris of, like, I can see even by the separation of the dark layer and the high layer, I'm like, what the fuck kind of bud is he pressing? Or when they just do tons and tons of keef and then hammer that with a lot of heat, there's this concept that rosin is this holier than now, and I'm like, sure, if we're all going for the cup, but then there's this other side of rosin where people are basically passing on poisons as non-solvent, so therefore there's nothing wrong in this world, and the bud was fucking poison, and now it's soup. And it's like really a problem because people just have this auto hope that solventless equals good, just like they applied the same logic to CO2, and then the CO2 can spread the wealth, and then the lipids within the CO2 extraction spread the wealth, and all of those things will literally send me to the hospital. So there is, obviously I had to find my own solvent extract. It's not like I just go with, I don't obviously go with any group. I'm a one-off. But to say that solvents have no place in this universe when a one-off holds a solution for himself, it clearly shows that solvents aren't solvents, because limonene is like no hydrocarbon, and therefore what it takes from cannabis is, at least in my case, showing up time and time again as a different result. Someone takes a distillate and says, it's not working for my pancreatitis or my Crohn's or for my gallbladder, and then they take a dab of LHO and like, I have all the BHO in the world and nothing's worked for me like this. And I'm like, it should be the same extraction, so what the fuck gives? Is it just cleaner? That makes no sense. I keep getting clinical feedback from people that says it's not so simple as solvent versus solventless. That's why I keep asking these questions, so that people don't just say it's all solved, let's move forward.
But all the people you're dealing with are not using cannabinoids, so when they finally get it in their system, they're going to get results because they're suffering from a condition, so you can't really blame it on that specific deal. It sure doesn't work and stuff like that, but I mean...
John, how did you know that a grower with 50 packs has no cannabinoid experience? You just jumped to a huge conclusion.
Yeah, just saying, dude.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess the point I'm making, and I might be making a completely different point, which is that with rosin, just for example, I know with BHO too, that's just another example, but let's just look at rosin. I've seen rosin that tests in the mid-90s for THCA content. That means that it's 95% pure, one and only one compound. That means there's only 5% other stuff in there. And whenever you see, you know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, right, Tony? We were talking about sugaring. When you see stuff sugaring and you see crystals forming in your terpy stuff where the terps are sort of separating and you're starting to see crystals, those are THCA molecules that are finding each other because they're at what's beyond what's called the KSP, which is the equilibrium constant of when it's more thermodynamically favored for those things to be in the crystalline lattice form. It's a low energy form. And so they'll start to crystallize. And when you see that crystallization happen, you have very pure material. That means that there's enough energy associated with that crystallization that becomes a low energy pathway, And Horatio, whenever you've seen crystallization before, I mean, again, all of these crystallization processes are driven by the fact that the molecules will like to find each other. If they're in a soup of other molecules, they may not be able to find each other. The more concentrated they are, the more likely they are that they're going to find each other. If you could make 95% pure THCA from a rosin process, which is a, quote, solventless process, which we now know is a moisture-driven process that relies on the fact that the cannabinoids form a, you know, again, a azeotrope with the boiling of the water, and the water, like the water that's in between your tire and the road when you hydroplane, has nowhere to go but to escape. And when that water escapes, it carries the essential oil with it, the distillable compounds from the essential oil, which is not the fats. So I don't think there's a whole lot of fats and waxes in that 5% of the unknown material from a rosin that analyzes for 95% THCA.
We're not arguing your 95% rosin, but that's not the argument, Mark. Like, it's just like, it's not like I don't know how to make THCA and I've seen the whole process break down. I get into these situations where clearly the people have even brands, very strong brands. And when I have 4 different presses, you never mention things like temperature and pressure, because I see some people like, I'll use thumb pressure and this much temperature, and another guy, I'm going to use 20 tons and no heat. So it's just a blur to say rosin. I get the steam process. I know how to do it well. What I see applied in the market and what people, like, no one's going, where are the tests for rosin for parts per million or solvent? No, people just go blind. But let's say there's THCA in Oregon that's full of pentane, and it's not a completed process. So that, but it looks crystalline, so everyone's guaranteed they're done and they're high-fiving. Not every THCA is done, and the shit didn't test for, it didn't even test 99%. It's not like Cali Lab stuff. Their shit tests perfect. Like, it's wet, it's ready for market. But I see other people go, we've got THCA, we've got THCA, and I'm like, this is a 96% extract. The last 5% can be anything, and unfortunately I'm hyper allergic to 0.25%, so my throat goes to death. I'm watching now. We get websites where we see rosin reviews, and when the rosin review says this is destroying my throat, is it the plant, is it the processor, is it, what is it? Because normally that would all get blamed on butane. It would all get blamed on butane, and
Yeah,
that's where the new question comes up.
The other 5% is the other minor cannabinoids, flavonoids, and everything that comes out in the extract, and other things like the terpenes that are certainly there. I think this hashishine compound, or any degradation from the most fragile of terpenes that are in the flower, if you're pressing flower or if you're pressing, hash, you're certainly going to be doing some kind of thermal chemistry to it. So, yeah, but the fact that, again, they're analyzing for such high degrees of purity tells me, again, and the only reason why I'm sharing that with us, with this audience, is that, again, to just feed into what Sam was saying, that if it's cheap to cultivate and it's cheap to extract, it's essentially cheap to cultivate and extract, so it should be inexpensive to bring medicine, even the highest quality medicine, to a mass population.
If you have the bud that produced 95%, I think so. Like, I'm not, it's when I get into distillation that I start to see what the future is going to be like, and I'm like, oh my God, this is where all the mistakes are going to go. Everyone's trying to distill now all their problems away, and they're actually hyper-concentrating dangerous soups. It's got, like, that's what I'm looked at. I'm like, oh, distillation's the new game. Well, guess what? This fish-ass smell, that's dangerous. It didn't even smell like that before it was decarbed. Like, there's other markets. Like, your shit, Tony's shit, I get it. We all want that shit. When I go for the cup, that's what I have. But when I, let's say, have to produce 1,000 tons of straight decarboxylated THC, I'm going to get 7 different harvests. I may get several different processors, and if one of those processors has microbutanol, and then that microbutanol boils to convert to cyanide, like you said, and I have it in a large industrial amount, it's a big problem, and that's what seems to shoot the price of medicine up, is the standardization of garbage. Like, it's like me having to run a chromatography column on everything to absolutely be sure, rather than to just be able to look a grower in his eyes. Obviously, it's cheaper to look a grower in his eyes and know you can trust him. But in my case, I can't trust anybody ever again, so now my costs go up.
Well, that's what you see in Colorado right now. That's the furthest along in the regulations. That's why you see all of these shutdowns and callbacks. That's the public health, and that's like different departments getting involved, saying you can't have that in that flower and then concentrate it, and it's a scary thing. Absolutely, you know.
Do you think that Colorado will spread if, like, let's say the whole nation became legal? Would there be more Colorados than Oregons? Because I look at Oregon as an ideal future for Canada.
You know, what up with just not running, you know, subpar material? And once we
Todd,
have
it's
the
not
freedom to
subpar,
grow
man.
good stuff,
Don't
we'll
assume I'm
throw
running
away
swag.
pot. We'll throw away cannabis. We will actually just discard the stuff that didn't work out perfect and move on to the tomatoes that look just perfect for the dinner table. It's going to be that easy because it's going to be that inexpensive. The problems you're facing now are not going to be problems in the future because it's not going to be expensive to actually reboot and do it right. And you're going to see that happen all over the place because it's not going to be hard to apply the technologies we have today that we already use to make food and the stuff we consume to cannabis.
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
I can agree with that hope for result. Like, don't think I'm out there looking at chopped lettuce. Everything looks. It's basically, if I try to extract 9 out of 10 things on the top shelf, I can already tell you that although it may go well for BHO, because they'll swing one way or another, if I actually ask for the truth from the plant, I'm going to get a bunch of different things. Because let's say I try to dry sift every bud I encounter, what I find is, holy shit, if I live my life on dry sift, most of these buds have a problem with processing. Like, you know, something simple like that we need to just say, people get your shit together and buy an AC. I really find that there are people who are just not getting common sense. Things that you take for granted. Like, I remember you were like, hey, this is just good watering. And I'm like, oxygenation is not common sense, Todd. Don't call it good watering. You have a science down that you're taking for granted. Let's talk expansively.
Bro. No, I'm not taking it for granted, but we've used, look, hydroponics is not a new technology, you know what I mean? And aeroponics has been around for 30 years. This is not, what we're doing isn't rocket science, and everybody wants to break their arm patting themselves on the back because they pulled off a good grow, but really what we're doing is just hobbyist stuff to the point in which we haven't, as a community, had the ability to do what other industries have been able to do, which is actually, on so many levels, standardized process, minimize cost, create a more efficient grow, communicate with each other. Don't think the whiskey industry and the wine industry doesn't do it, because when they work together, it's not called conspiracy in a federal court. And when that changes for us, and we can actually, just network with one another and share our ideas and share how we grow, and share our experience and not go to prison for it, you're going to see a lot of innovation. You're going to see a lot of things change. You're going to see all of this become a whole different day. I don't feel so pessimistic about where we're going. Look at all the organization of what we have around us when it already comes to fruits and nuts and vegetables.
Don't take my pessimism for internal pessimism. Consider it a wanting for a replacement of the populace within the community. So my pessimism is that these people aren't going to fucking change, and as long as they control the 50 packs, the world is fucked. But the minute the graduate who decided to go to school and take a loan and go into debt for a plant gets involved, then the kind of standards that I'm looking for professional peers, and what I see is a market in which the last guy who was a professional gave up and started growing grapes to kick ass there.
I live in California, so, for years and years, decades and decades, I admired the craft coming out of Northern California. It's been amazing. When you could really get, good Humboldt or good Mendocino or good Trinity County, it was a marvel. And the people that did it with such, care and precision, and they only released the stuff that was the best. I mean, there was a point where it was such a boutique industry, and maybe it was because the gardeners at the time were getting top dollar for their efforts, but that's still going to be out there, and we're still going to see that quality coming around. And I don't know, man. I get that you're seeing a lot of subpar material, it sounds like, but truthfully,
nobody knows it's
gonna
subpar,
change.
dude. That's what's crazy. Nobody knows it's subpar but me. Because when Hash Church ends and I get a message going, I wish you could run my bud, I'm like, I wish I could teleport through my phone, because the people who I belong with are out there. I know it, I feel it, and I'm like, why are they the marginalized? Why are they the ones struggling with they have the cup entry, but it's a closet. Why don't they get
man, there's a lot of good stuff out here, and I get to take photos for different contests, and I get to be around, a lot of people that do things through the Secret Cup or Chalice or other events, and you know what? I see a lot of quality in the community, and I understand that there is a lot of counter quality, and there has been a race to the bottom in the last maybe decade with medicalization in California, where prices drop, and but you're still seeing an evolution of process, and as this changes and as more and more people come online, you're not going to have the problems with quality when you can afford to throw away any of the material that didn't quite meet your standards. This is why I think you're frustrated, because people aren't throwing away stuff that they shouldn't be giving you, and you're discovering that it's not what you want to use. And I get that. When you have a facility behind your extraction company and you're only the one to blame if the material going into your extraction company isn't to the standards of quality that you desire, then you'll be in a situation where none of what you're saying really matters, because all of those other manufacturers aren't your problem. It's not your circus, aren't your monkeys.
Man.
You know
I
what
come
I mean?
home and I look at geek farms do their thing every day. I look at them digging a soil mountain, and I'm like, why don't those guys own the world? That's what I want. Why are they? I feel like I'm trying to attract them, my local version of them. They're watching Hatchers right now, and they think I have awesome bud. But I see the love every day. It's what my Facebook is focused on. So when I go on computer, I feel like I'm in the industry I want to be in. But then when I go out into my actual world, I see people high-fiving over the worst bud on the planet.
I don't. I'm not gonna say your experience isn't yours. My experience is a little different. I see a lot of people proud to show me stuff and put a lot of love into it, and that's not going to change. And I just wish they weren't facing prison in order to grow the flowers that they share with me, and me feel the same. And I admire your extractions. I like, honestly, all extractions for different purposes. I don't really smoke CO2, but I see all these people carrying around the pens, and it's actually helping them get through their day. And while I don't want to puff on them all the time, it's helping a lot of people get cannabinoids into their system in a way that doesn't offend other people in a private, quick second, and it's modulating their whole world, and I'm for that. So I see a place for everything. I mean, if the world was perfect, I'd have pounds of perfect dry seeds that but I don't right now, and I'm probably not going to have that until cannabis is super inexpensive.
But please let me know when you do, Todd, because I want to come visit.
Ironically, I was going to say I probably would have gotten it from you, because truthfully, be told, the first time I ever saw a pile of pure resin heads was when you provided old Ed his 80th birthday present in Amsterdam, and a little film. Remember film canisters?
Oh,
and
yeah,
I poured it under the microscope at Positronics, and I looked through it, and I just stood there for probably 2 minutes staring at just all these little round spears of amazement. Nothing else there but little round spears.
Well, if I remember correctly, that wasn't 99. It was only like 70 or 80. It wasn't 99.9% resin heads. Because when I made that, it would run through the fucking screens.
I had never seen anything like that. We had the big aluminum screens at Positronics we used to put on the tables and we do our work on, and we had the pollinators that tumbled, of course, but when you gave him that little vial, I'd never seen heads like that in my life. That was the very first time I saw the resin heads. It was the very first time. Really.
So I'd love to circle back to something that Mark was saying earlier. He was talking about, first thing, he was saying there's no lipids in rosin, and I believe that there's definitely lipids in rosin. But the second thing really is, I think that there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about what's going on with rosin. When you're doing an extraction of rosin, you've got the heat and pressure, and anything that's liquefied by heat will be extruded by pressure. And so those are the two main functions that are happening. Now, you will have boiling of water, and you will have boiling of terpenes because their boiling points are much lower than what you have. But the cannabinoids, THC in particular, the temperature never gets to anywhere near what you need for distillation to happen. So it's not really a micro distillation of cannabinoids. It's more of a heat extrusion of liquefied constituents.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's fair. Okay, absolutely.
Well
I'm just saying that I've seen stuff that tests in the mid-90s. So if it tests in the mid-90s, what's that other 5%, Jeff? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really too much in there. I would say that some lipids would probably be what's in there.
These are very, very clear. The rosins that are extremely clear, almost shatter-like when you scrape up samples like this. It's almost like a glassy solid more than a gooey oil.
Mark, lipids aren't gooey and oily. Trim extracts are shattery. They lock up with the THC and they're hard as a rock till you look at your nail or your lips or your teeth. It's not going to be gooey.
I see stuff in a vial whenever I run my experiments on the GC. When I put rosin in methanol, I get a simple wax in there. And when I mix it with hexane, it disappears. I have shatters are getting some waxes that are left in there too because they're only testing low 70s and low 60s. And in the vials, I'm seeing waxes floating in my vials with a lot of extractions lately. So that's what I'm seeing, and the only way I get rid of that is to mix it with hexane, and that's where I know what's. I haven't tasted to that far, but pretty much it has to be the wax is what we're seeing. Is with
right. That's exactly what that is. Yeah. The question is how much of it is coming over?
As much as there is limonene. If limonene would be the hexane that would bring it over, so the terp content is what keeps it fluid. That's why if your extract is good, it will keep moving with it, and if your extract is basically tasteless, then it would stay behind.
I mean, has anyone ever winterized a large batch of extract and remove a sizable fatty lipid fraction? Has anyone ever done that?
Well, I mean, this is lipids right here. This is through an ethanol winterization process, and then off of the filters, I heated the filters, and it's all done below 200 degrees. So definitely like the temperatures that rosin would be at, and it liquefies.
That's from CO2 oil, correct?
This one is from CO2 oil, definitely. But
so have you done an extraction of lipids from rosin?
I have done a separation of lipids. I haven't done a large amount, and they drop out just like the CO2 does. It drops out of the solution, and so I imagine that it's going to be the same. I don't have this quantity of it from rosin, though. No.
Sure.
Right. So what's the level of cannabinoid did that test for, Jeff?
This right here, I do not have a cannabinoid test result on this because this is just a waste product. It's just the lipids that have been precipitated out of the solution through the winterization process. And so
what's the solution analyzed for? Like how much cannabinoid are you getting out in your cannabinoid fraction?
Oh, well, I mean, it just depends. This is from CO2, and so, we find anything from, like, the mid-50s up into the mid-70s. It just really kind of depends on what the strain was and what the starting material was. Really, it was reflective upon that percentage.
Right.
Jeff, that's really funny because I make dry sipped, and when it's really, really, really clean, like 99.9, I can get it 82% THC and terpene rich.
Right.
Nice.
Hey, who wants to smoke a joint?
Are you smoking flowers there, Bubbleman?
No, I just found this joint in my room on the floor in the corner. I was like, "What's that?" It's like, "Oh, it's a Fatiman."
Leave it for the cleaning lady.
Yep.
Hey man, don't be dissing the herb, man. That is like sacrilegious.
I wasn't dissing the herb. I
All
love
you
the
hash snobs, you're like, weed vegans, I only smoke hashish.
This is hash church, man, not weed church.
Yeah, well, it all started with the cannabis, man. You wouldn't have your hash if it wasn't for the gardeners.
Actually,
And that funky
hash actually
flower.
came first. Hash came first, and then cannabis came second.
Hash came first.
Wait a minute, is that because you can rub a plant that's still growing?
How dare you, sir?
It's the chicken or the egg. I'm
Oh,
saying it's
clearly the chicken in this case. Clearly. I think the resin gland glows on top of the cannabis plant, sir.
something like that.
It would be
Yeah,
a big
but
so.
I also heard that the one we really love is the message, not the messenger.
Yes, yes. Herb is the messenger. Bubble is the message.
Hey, we got a shout out to Brian Eisenberg in the chat who got the question right of who was the first one to isolate the endocannabinoid anandamide. Do we know who that is here on the panel?
Sure.
Who is that? Who was the first one?
Bill Devane.
Yeah.
William Devane, that's right. Sam, you're correct.
Yeah, well, he's a friend of mine.
Brian Eisenberg was the first one in the chat to correctly identify Will Devane as being the scientist isolate that, so he gets free admission to our chemistry for hash makers class next week.
I think Bill was also part of the Alan Hewitt team that discovered first the receptor.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. Yep.
I know her also.
Well, we ought to get those folks on church sometime. What do you think, Sam?
Bill might do it. I don't think she would. But Bill, maybe. There's a possibility. I don't have his current email. I haven't seen him in years.
Well, maybe he's watching right now. If you're watching out there, Bill.
Tell him he likes dry sift.
Yeah, yeah. For those of you who don't know, we're talking about William Devane, who is a postdoctoral in Rafi Meshulam's lab, who identified after fractionating several brains of pigs the molecule that is in everybody that basically binds to the CB1 receptor, and that's anandamide. And he was the one who actually named it anandamide, I think. That's the way the story goes, anyway.
It was that.
And how did Lemire Hanous fit into it? He just was working with.
Yeah, he was a part of that same team that I think Sam was referring to with Alan Hallett here in the United States at University of Washington in St. Louis, who identified not just the place where THC binds, but also where this anandamide binds in CB1 receptors found in rat brains. And so by finding it there, they were able to find similar receptors in humans and all mammals.
Cool. Yeah, well, that was Matt McKay in the chat room who brought up Lemire Hanous and that he was working with Devane, so I just wanted to mention that.
He's actually going to be stateside here. He's coming and speaking at a ASA meeting here in Washington, D.C. in a little bit, and I think he's going to be speaking at a couple other conferences here in the United States. So he's part of a group from the Czech Republic that's very active in cannabis research internationally.
Excellent. Well, I get to drive to Kingston today from Negril. It's going to take me 3.5 to 4 hours. And I'll probably do Hash Church for another 20 minutes or so we can make it a nice even 3 hours. You guys got into some pretty good discussions there. I was just sitting back and watching. It was enjoyable to hear you guys get all passionate about what you love.
Oh, cannabis.
This T-shirt was the 1-year anniversary of Bill Devane's discovery. I gave Bill one of these shirts.
Oh my God. And I love anandamides. Dude, you are the
For those
ultimate
of you
trooper.
who haven't seen it, Google the movie Meshulam the Scientist. It's very telling, and Bill Devane is featured in that movie. You'll see all about Bill's role in the discovery of anandamide and the receptors.
Cool. Yeah, I'm certain that if Sam had 1,000 of those shirts right now and set up to a website, that they probably would have just sold.
Well, this is one of about 4 or 5 different designs we actually did.
It's funny.
This one had to do specifically with the discovery of anandamide in a pig's brain.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Hey, Sam, maybe you would be able to answer this question. Why wouldn't GW be interested in taking anandamide into the clinic as opposed to CBD?
They're really a plant-based company.
Okay.
Fundamentally.
Right. You'd think if they could come up with an active form of anandamide and come up with a feasible synthesis and a way of making it, that would actually...
No, it's not true, because I had several patents for anandamide and a whole family of anandamide analogs which control glaucoma better than any other cannabinoid or any other control. And they were not interested in it.
Well, because they were not interested in it doesn't mean it's not valuable stuff to...
I didn't say it wasn't valuable. I said they weren't interested in it.
Yeah, I tell you what, Sam, can you and I talk offline about that? Could you hit me up on email? I'd like to talk to you about that.
Or send me an email, remind me.
Okay,
thank you. I'd be happy to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with a collaborator now that's interested in putting nano particles to work by basically putting cannabinoids and endocannabinoids into them, and I'd like to understand the scope and breadth of that work.
For anandamides, anandamide analogs, and using cyclodextrin to pass the eye barrier.
Yeah, I'm not interested in cyclodextrin, but let's talk.
Sorry.
So I wanted to say one other question about, or one other thing that Horatio had said, something about the fishy smell. So you guys are aware of that fishy smell. Typically when you get thermooxidative degradation of some of these unsaturated, polyunsaturated fatty acids, like the eicosanoid acids, of which anandamide has an eicosanoid tail, and a lot of the omega and polyunsaturates that are found in hemp seed oil and other seed oils have these polyunsaturated molecules. Well, when they're heated up in the presence of air, they do undergo this thermolytic reaction that generates these very acrid smelling molecules, and one of them is that fishy smelling molecule that you might smell if you ever notice, if you have high omega eggs and you make like an omelet and you really cook that omelet like really well done, like if you like your omelets well done, what you'll notice is that the eggs start to get a little bit of a fishy taste to it. And what it is that thermal degradation of those high polyunsaturated omegas that are in there, that are fortified in the eggs, that start undergoing these rapid thermal degradation reactions. And so you might notice this too in hash, or you might notice this if you're doing like vacuum distillation to make like clear, this really fishy smelling and acrid tasting material that can be associated with, again, thermal degradation of fatty acids that are common in plants and just about all living materials.
Well, it's just dispensary owners ask me, like, hey, everyone keeps getting approached, hey, I need to put this clear in your edibles. It's clear, it's the better. And everyone's like, it smells like fish and plastic. What do I do? And I'm like, you've been fucked. That guy fucked up his clear and the BHO that went into it, and it wasn't pre-processed properly before distillation. So it basically blew up and recondensed into a clear-looking oil, but an acrid, uninhalable poison. And then these people do it at such a large scale that then they can't throw it away because they can't learn anything before going big. Seems to be the issue.
Yeah, I mean, if you're frying any kind of foods, like if you're frying chicken or if you're frying tofu, whatever you happen to fry, you'll notice that once you use the oil once and you use the oil twice and 3 times, it starts to smoke and you start to smell, again, a very acrid smelling compound, and that's because, again, some of the unsaturated compounds that, again, are ubiquitous in most oils and certainly a lot of the compounds that come in from cannabis extract, particularly those that are extracted from the trichome, have double bonds, and those double bonds all react with oxygen and air when you heat it up. You can't keep it from reacting. And so the trichomes and most of, again, what you're seeing when you degrade stuff, not only on the nail surface, but even in the GC, you are doing some thermal rearrangement of the chemistry that's on the plant. And there is some acrid smelling compounds that you can get that you can identify from the residue that are found in pens, and I know that others have tested, and we know that Reclaim contain an awful lot of CBN, and so when you get buildup and residues on your nails and on your pens or whatever, I mean, those degradation products do and will exist, and certainly can be inhaled if you're using, say, like a dirty pen or some dirty dab rig or something like that. I always like that iridescent, glow that the degraded fats make on your nail surface. You ever see that? It looks kind of like you see like a sheen on it, like looking at a puddle that's got like an oil, sheen on it. You know what I mean? You ever see that on your nail? It just degrade. That's all.
All right. Yeah, I'm unmuted here. Excellent, excellent. I got to cut Hash Church a bit short today, so I'm got to get to Kingston, and I still have to get gas and change a bit of cash. That could probably take about 4 hours here in Negril doing those 2 things. I'm going to try and speed through them, but wish me luck here, everybody. The next time we see you guys, I will be in Barcelona, and I'm going to be there with a couple of familiars, so you guys will see who that is when it happens. Thanks, everyone, for coming and sharing your time and, discussing things with one another and being part of Hash Church. And, of course, thank you, the 1,053 people that are watching live right now and the 25,000 people that will watch in the next week. We do appreciate you spending your time with us, and we try to step up the bar each week for ourselves, but also for you. So, sayonara, and we will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.
Peace. Safe trip, man.